to hear the conversation that we're about to have because we were almost about to have our own podcast off air. So I'm so glad that Benny kind of told me, kept me in line and told me to get on live. So that's what we're going to do. Ben Sedaghatfar is the founder of Radius Earphones. And for people, if you don't know, this was before Dre came out with his earphone line. So Ben can brag and say that he started something before Dr. Dre. He also has a company, tagunder.com, and he's the chief visionary officer at Subject. His industry is consumer electronics, and he has agreed to do a 3-hour interview with me, which is insane because we could talk all day. I totally appreciate your time and your graciousness. He also resides in Los Angeles, California currently. He got his BS in business and economics in 2004, University of Indiana at Bloomington. Welcome, Ben, to the show.
Hi, Jerry. I'm glad to be here with you.
Oh, guys, Jerry.
What did I say?
Me that. You can call me Jerry. You can do that.
Kiko.
My audience knows me as Kiko, but call me Jerry.
Kiko. Okay. Sorry,
you can raise the
Kiko.
curtain up. It's all good. Call me Jerry.
Okay.
That's good.
All right. So, just to get started. So thanks for the introduction, by the way. I know I didn't send you updated information. You got a lot of that information off of LinkedIn, which is years old, including the picture. And I think when we got on the camera, you were surprised by my look, no hair versus
you look
the
good,
one
man.
that you posted.
You look good, though.
But yeah, so I did start Radius Earphones. That was a few years back. Then I started Subject, which was another headphone company. And that was before Dr. Dre started his Beats by Dre and kind of destroyed our business. So I had to switch from there to I did a bunch of different things, but I got into apparel, and now I do apparel manufacturing. But I'm also in transition, where we're going to transition from not necessarily transition. I'm gonna move. I'm gonna start another company, basically, where we're gonna reduce our manufacturing in apparel. I'm gonna move into doing cabinet manufacturing in the next couple of months. So,
have you always been like that, just very business minded?
I wouldn't say. I've always loved starting businesses and new things. And I think the apparel company was one of the more successful, my first successful business that I started. But it was a process, like having a bunch of failures from, not necessarily failures, it was all learning. I did okay in the other businesses, but every time, with every new business, I learned from the previous businesses, and I don't know, it was always a learning experience. So I wouldn't call it a failure, but just a learning experience that helped me start another business that became more successful over time.
That's a good way to put it. And just so you know, Ben, I know you're actively at work too. So if you got stuff to do too, feel free to step in and out whenever you need to. I can always edit those parts.
Give me 1 second.
Yeah, you take your time. I can edit any of this out. Yeah. No, you're good. Take your time, man.
Yeah, I'll give you a call later. All right, I'm back.
No, but I got conflicted with the time because I looked at my schedule, like, damn, it was 12 Pacific. Everything has been 12 Central. That's what confused me, because all my other interviews have been 12 Central. But yeah, you're right. It was 12 Pacific, but it's all good. We're talking right now, and that's all that matters.
Right.
But I kind of want the audience to know, man, we go way back, Ben. As the audience knows, you call me by my real name, which no one hardly does besides people who have known me at least 20 years. And so we went to high school.
So what did you change to Kiko?
Kiko happened in Spanish class, man. Third year. Spanish 3 is when it became super official, because Ace actually stole my name that I wanted. And so he was Felipe. That's who I wanted to be, was Felipe. But he stole my name, and so I had to settle for Kiko, and Kiko just stuck. And so after that, I was like, yeah. And I want to always feel more global and international anyway. So Kiko felt like a good stage name to have. And so it stuck all these years. I'm 40 now. And that happened when I was 16. So 24 years in rolling with Kiko,
24 years.
my other
Wow.
alias. But
Wow.
as far as you, man, you told me in high school that you're originally from Iran.
Yeah.
So what's a little bit into your backstory for the audience to know, to give this a little bit more context, the stuff we're going to talk about?
So I was born in Iran. I moved to the United States when I was 14. So basically, I almost finished 8th grade in Iran. And right before I was about to take my final exams in 8th grade, we left. And the problem, we moved to Austria. Lived in Austria for 4 months while we were working on immigrating. I came here as an immigrant to the United States. So I was in Austria for 4 months. Then we came to the United States. I was in New York for 2 weeks. And then I moved to Nashville where my family lives. And I remember I came to Nashville on a Wednesday and I started school. I went to Hillsborough High School. I started freshman year at Hillsborough High School on Monday. So I came in on a Wednesday, started school on Monday. So I went to school on Monday, not knowing any English. And Hillsborough High School, I don't know if you guys know at the time, I don't know if it is right now, was an international school where they had ESL and where all the foreigners, all the foreign kids, all the immigrants who came to Nashville, they went to Hillsborough High School because they had a ESL program where you learn English as some of your classes, and then you went to you did all your other the rest of this, your math and science and everything else. And I remember going to school the first day, and it was shocking because I went to an all boys school. In Iran, boys and girls are separated. They're not mixed schools. So boys go to their own school, girls go to their own school. And I also went to an all Jewish school in Iran. Yeah. So that was an interesting experience, coming into a high school. And I want to say that when I moved to the US, it was the best time and the worst time for a kid to immigrate at 14 years old, because when you're 13 and 14, you're just sort of coming into your own, trying to figure out who you are, and just getting thrown into this new world, that you just came into. It was very difficult at the beginning. I mean, the first year, it was one of the most difficult times of my life.
What was
not knowing English, not having friends, trying to make friends, and I was depressed. I gained like so much weight, and but over time, I kind of sort of worked. I worked through it, and I started playing soccer. And I think once I started playing soccer, it kind of helped change a lot of things, because in the soccer field, you're able to be yourself and play where you lack in other places of like socializing with other, like, let's say American kids in language or in like other things. You can show that in what you're capable of on the soccer field with your soccer skill. And that's where I started making friends, because I was good at soccer. And I kind of sort of helped me get out of that and start making connections and socializing. And by then I'd learned English. So it just, my life changed from then on. And
what was your impression of, because you moved to right in the Franklin, Nashville area. What was your impression of the area? Do you have any sort of preconceived notions about Tennessee before you moved to Tennessee?
No, I have preconceived notion about America, not Tennessee.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because when you live outside of the United States, you think of America as this place that is just what when people think of America, they think of Times Square, like
For sure.
lights and just like things happening and everybody's having a great time and
Mm-hmm.
so that's and everything is modern and clean and organized. But that I remember I was so disappointed because we came into JFK and JFK is just it, now maybe they've cleaned it up, but back then it was just like kind of not what I had expected. So
Mm.
that was my first thing, but I didn't have any preconceived notion of Tennessee in general.
Now,
But
when you say you're from, are you from Tehran?
I'm from Tehran. Yes,
Tehran's a big city, right?
Tehran is a big city. It's a pretty modern city at this point. I haven't been there in 25 years, but yeah, it's a modern city, uh, and it's a capital of Iran. So
Do you so you say you have been back since,
no,
or
I have
you
not
haven't?
been back. No, I have not.
Do you have any desire to go back?
Though I have a desire, I want to go back to see, just to see to visit. Go back to the places I used to visit. Go back to the home I used to live in, just to see if it even exists there or not.
Mm.
Most of my friends, most of my family, uh, actually, like I say, 90% of my classmates who I grew up with in Iran, they actually live in America now. And about 80% of them live in Los Angeles. So
Is
I
there a
work
reason
with
for
some
that?
of them now. Uh, is there a reason? I don't know. There is just a huge Iranian community in California, especially in Los Angeles. Um, so I think it's because of maybe the weather, and the weather is like kind of similar to Tehran and Iran. Uh, and so a lot of people would start immigrating in the 80s. They came to Los Angeles, they started working, and it just became a base. Like the same way in Nashville has the largest population of Iraqi Kurds,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because once people immigrated and they set up a community, the people who immigrate, they want to be part of that community because that's where they have access to, support, jobs, to be able to set up businesses and things like that. And I think that's a reason why.
Is the whole dynamic with Jewish people, is that common in Iran? Because when I think of Iran, I don't think of Jewish people being there, like not in large numbers anyway. Am I wrong in that assessment?
Uh, you're right and you're wrong at the same time. So Iran has the largest Jewish population in the Middle East outside of Israel.
Oh wow, I did not know that.
Yes, but the population right now I think stands at like 30,000.
Okay, so that's relatively small. I mean,
It's
30,000 people.
relatively small, but it's the largest Jewish population in the Middle East. So you can't find any Jews in Iraq, in Lebanon, in
Exactly.
any of the Saudi Arabia, Jordan. You don't find it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think there was we all have this picture of places, and I know we're gonna get into this like Israel or like you asked me, that I have preconceived notion of like America, for example. So
Mm-hmm.
we all have these preconceived notions of all these places, and a lot of people think Iran is this place where it's like yes, it is an Islamic republic. It is presented in the news as a place where things are very harsh, and they are. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of propaganda. There's a lot of control, but the people, you can't people. A country's government doesn't represent their people in a way. At least not anymore. Does our current government represent all the people in the United States? I
Good
don't
point.
think so.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So a lot of people think, oh, Jewish people had a hard time living in Iran. to a certain extent, maybe, yes, there are restrictions, and there is some people, the same way people, they say there are racist people in America, there are, anti-Semitics in Iran, but it doesn't represent everybody,
For sure.
My father had a successful manufacturing business with, his partners were all Muslim. I went to an all Jewish school. We had our own synagogue. You were free to go wherever you want, do whatever you want. As long as they're all within the limits of what the government tells you, not just for Jews, but for, everybody. We were able to, observe we had religious freedom. But then there were like, there were like clashes between like kids saying, oh, you're a Jew, because
right.
I had like heard these things. And I remember we used to have, we had our school, my Jewish school, our school was right next to another school that was a Muslim school, like a regular public school, basically. And we were separated by a wall.
Oh, man.
And it was like, there were times where it would just be, people, like one person would start throwing trash from one side, from that school into ours, and then we'd start throwing trash. It would just become like a war, and then I remember there were times when we'd go outside and you get chased by kids, trying to like beat you up because you were Jewish, but it wasn't, it wasn't all the time, and it wasn't like they were doing it on purpose. It was just like sort of, I don't know. It's hard to explain.
It's almost like kids trying to discover themselves, like considering
right,
all
because
the
they
cultural intricacies and everything.
And so that's all it was.
Okay.
But, Iran is a beautiful country. People are very hospitable. They're very welcoming people. I say they're very smart and educated. And they've been through a lot, the past 4 decades since,
no doubt,
the Iran-Iraq war, or even since the revolution. There's just so many things been happening in the last 5 to 10 years. Economically, it's just been devastating with inflation and hyperinflation. I don't know if you knew right now they're telling us the official inflation rate in the US is like 9.1%. Right? Where in reality it's more like 10 or 20.
It's more like 12.
18, like 20%.
Oh, 20? Really? Oh,
yeah,
man.
It's between 18 to 20%.
That makes sense though. At the same, I knew it was higher than 9.
What do you think the rate of inflation has been in Iran in the past 5 years?
In the past 5 years?
Yeah.
Double that. 20%?
No.
Over 100%?
Close to 1,000%.
Oh gosh, that's insane.
So
yeah,
let's put it into perspective. I was talking to my friend who moved here 5 years ago, and he said, the exchange rate for the dollar to the Iran's currency, which is the toman, it was 3,000 toman per dollar. And today the exchange rate is at 30,000 toman per dollar. So people, it's just a lot that's happening there.
Is there a reason why? Is it simply because of war? Is it because of conflict, or is it because of some other outside force?
Well, a lot of it is because of sanctions.
Sanctions,
The U.S. sanctions has to do with the government being corrupt. There were, people, just corruption. A lot of it is corruption. And yeah.
And see, that's an interesting point. I always try to tell my friends that they see war as just simply combat on the field. Sanctions are also a form of war. Like I always try to remind people that, because look at what you just explained, the economic effects just from the sanctions alone, not to mention corruption in the government, and you have other issues outside of, just the US and Iran. But sanctions, they definitely take their toll on people. And that's who it really hurts. It hurts the population. The government
Right.
always has a way to hide or, do something with their resources, but the people don't have anywhere to hide. They're always going to be vulnerable.
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, look, the people at the end are always who's going to get hurt. And I think a lot of times when we judge, in our mind of, let's say a lot of people support Ukraine and they're against Russia. But what we don't, it's hard to put this into words, is that a lot of times we don't think of the effects that those have on us as humans, right? So people say, Russia, we're gonna put sanctions on Russia, but there are babies who are in Russia, there are poor people in Russia, there are sick people in Russia. It doesn't mean that nobody, I'm not supportive of Ukraine and the people in Ukraine. Is that what we get to when we buy into a narrative from the news that this place is bad and this country is doing this, or Putin is destroying, invaded Ukraine, so we got to put sanctions on Russia. I think we all need to sort of go one step beyond and realize that if we all buy into a certain narrative, what are the consequences of that for the people in general who live in those countries? Does that make any sense?
It makes total sense. I'm actually going to also expand on what you were just saying about just focus on the human, the person perspective of this. A lot of people, we have to also realize that within the United States, we do have lots of groups here. We have lots of free thinking people, individuals, but there's a disconnect between the free thinking individuals, the individual ethnic cultural groups, and then the broader United States as a whole, the culture that we sort of cultivated here, which is it's a culture that's very much predicated on monoculturalism, not accustomed to anything outside of the one language, which is not even an official language. English is a de facto language of the United States, not an official language. But we know a lot of these individuals, they really haven't traveled a lot. And so their perceptions of places are very different from the reality on the ground. And so you take Russia, for instance, these same people who they see Putin, they don't realize that, and it doesn't make it right that these people in the first place would favor quote unquote minorities over the majority anyway, when you talk about race and culture. But a lot of people think that Russians are just full of white people. And that's completely opposite of the reality on the ground. I can't tell you how much diversity there is in Russia. There's so much diversity. And a lot of people just ignore that. And they make it seem like, oh, the poor Ukrainians versus the powerful Russians. And I'm saying to myself, you realize that a lot of the Russians live in Ukraine too. A lot of Russians live in Ukraine. And it's just these people, they just basically, like you said, they listen to what the legitimized authority is. The news tells them, but the news doesn't really go into the details of the actual reality.
The news is constructing a reality that they want to project.
For sure,
right?
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
So it's all a construct. Everything that we're being shown is a construct. It's somebody's narrative of a situation, right? And I think that's what we all need to realize, is to like sort of take off the goggles, and really think, because we've sort of outsourced our brain to the news, to like what we're being told, and we don't think beyond that. And a lot of time I think I can't blame those same people, because they're also busy trying to make a living. They're working, they're busy with their kids, they're trying to survive, and they only have little time to see what's going on around the world, and that's their little place where they go to get their information, and that place is you know, creating a reality that doesn't exist.
Absolutely.
Right. And that becomes their sort of reality. So that's why I also when we say like, oh, we're brainwashed, right? This is the sort of
that's what it is.
Right? Is everything is like, it's a construct, you know, and sometimes you gotta step back and start asking questions, you know, and we need to have more empathy, I think, especially now, about the consequences of the things we do, the things we say, the way we react to certain things, and have more love show more love towards each other.
I totally agree, man. I like that message, and I think this conversation is really important to you, not just because I know you, but also I believe that I know you don't get into social media a whole lot, but just based on our conversations that we've had, I feel like that you're very misinterpreted. I think you would be misinterpreted to a broader audience just based on what you just said, because it's like someone says something and people already have an idea of what you're going to say based on whatever affiliation they've put on you already, but you don't even have sort of the spotlight to say what you really feel. And you're also self-censoring yourself the whole time, because you say something, you don't know how that message is going to be interpreted once you click the post on the computer.
Right.
And I feel like me and you are really in a situation, we don't fall into these boxes, into these cheerleading squads when something goes up. We kind of sit back and just, let it play out, or, try to consider all the different information we get, because a lot of this stuff is emotionally driven. It's completely emotional, and there's no actual like justification behind it besides the emotion. And that doesn't make it be wrong, for that person. But I'm just saying, for the benefit of everyone else, that's very dangerous for the rest of us, because what if we don't have the same emotional attachment? Now we're getting pulled into something based on your emotions, but not based on actual rationale.
Right. No, I agree. I mean, I think part of the reason why we can see them, at least for me, and I'm sure it's the same for you, but I guess it's in different ways. For me, it's that I've lived in different places, as an immigrant. I came from Iran, I've experienced living there. I moved to Austria. I've lived in Israel. I've moved to America. I lived in Nashville. I've moved to Los Angeles. I've been to enough places that I've seen like different cultures, different realities, different, lived different sort of experiences, and know that, people, what you see on TV, right, or what you're exposed to on the news or on TV is not necessarily the reality that's happening in those places. So you're sort of you're able to spot it, and you see it. You're like, oh my, this is like, it's bullshit, right? It's not true.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, that experience has come as an immigrant. And I think for you, it's come as someone, you're a Spanish professor, right? That you lived in other countries.
Yeah, visited places.
You visited places, and you've seen there is a lot of people who live in different places, and everybody, and a lot of times it's not what you had heard about a place is not what it,
not at all
had told you it was, right? So that experience, it kind of gives you a perspective to when somebody tells you something, you don't necessarily take it as 100% fact, right? And that you start asking questions. And I think our job is to help people realize that there is a different perspective There is a different reality, and that, you know, even people we disagree with, like the BLM or the Antifa people, right? Or a lot of people on the left who are like just trying to buy into all this narrative that we 100% disagree with, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think at their core, they believe that what they're doing is for good,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's just that their perspective is different, but inherently they all want to do something good.
They all want to, yeah, for sure.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So they're not bad people. It's just
No.
The way their frame of reference is on the wrong, but at the same time, they're truly feel like they're trying to make a difference.
100%. No doubt.
And they're trying to make the world a better place.
And see, that's the thing about it. I like right now, people ask me, it's like, you know, you shouldn't be able to pin a person down. Like right now, I would describe myself as politically a homeless person. And we're going to get into kind of like your political philosophy and stuff just a little bit, but I think it'll kind of shine through, you know, based on some of the issues we're talking about, because I want to hit a lot of these topics that we got, man. It's literally a book full of topics that I threw at you, and, you know, we're going to discuss it. But as far as your perspective, you know, being a Jewish person, the whole idea with Palestine, there've been lots of different chatter out about a two-state solution and all these different alternatives. Like you, as Ben Sedaghatfar, like what is your whole take on that situation between the Palestinian Authority and Israel? Because the news really is hard to kind of get, you know, I guess a more objective side to it, because you do have I think the mainstream media definitely projects more of the US Israel sort of alliance, and then the Palestinian side really isn't heard as much. But then you have outlets that have pretty much pro-Palestine, and it's like, you know, Israel, whatever about Israel. What's your view on that?
Well, let me. What is your view? And then I'm gonna give you I'm gonna explain. So just tell me what is your perspective on Israel and Palestine and the conflict, and who do you think is right or wrong? And you just be open with how you feel. I don't want you to try to hold back or censor yourself.
No, I know you don't want it, because we've had these conversations, and the thing about it, the Israel situation is very sensitive. And Martin, if you listen to the first interview, when you say anything critical of Israel, they tag the anti-Semitic on you very quickly. Like I've gotten that a lot over the years, and with people that I thought I was cool with, I'm saying to myself, "Are you serious? Like you really believe I think that about you?" And I just as an independent person, the way I take in the news, I can see clearly that over the years, it's been presented very favorable in Israel's to Israel's advantage, in my opinion. So I'm trying to look, okay, can I get another perspective besides this same one that keeps getting bombarded in my mind? And so over time, I've developed a sympathy more for Palestinians, only because I feel like the Israel, they may not necessarily be the aggressor all the time, but I feel like they have the dominant position because the US is definitely aligned more with Israel. And so I'm automatically going to take the side that's more of the people who are being oppressed, you know, and Israelis have been oppressed throughout history for sure. But in this particular situation,
Israelis haven't been oppressed throughout history.
You don't think
Jewish
so?
people have.
Oh, Jewish people. Okay. Good. Okay.
You gotta make it. You gotta. I think part of this is why I asked the question.
Well, that's what you hear. That's what you hear.
And you have to separate between the country of Israel and somebody who's Jewish. They're not the same thing.
Right.
Israel is not the Jewish people. Jewish people are just Jewish people. They're
the diaspora.
A religion. It's a Christian. Now, Israel is a country that there's a lot of Jewish people live in that country. Right. So, but go on. What's your
But
So
that
what
was
do you?
but that was based on this is a relatively recent history. When was it? 1948, the
Yeah.
state of
After
Israel
World War II.
after World War II. My whole thing is I believe that Palestine should have its own, territory. I think it should have its own place. And I feel like I don't believe those are settlements. I just think it's taking people's land. I mean, personally, I think it seems like it's just becoming more and more shrunken to where Palestine is like it's just getting smaller and smaller by the decade. It's like every time you look, it seems like there's just more Israelis taking over Palestinian land, and that's the side that I see. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but
No,
that's what I see.
so we got to play this out because I think we're all the whole Israel conflict, in my opinion, just like I'm gonna compare it to like to abortion, is something. It's a tool. It's a tool to divide people and it's something that's not meant to ever be resolved.
Okay.
Right. So let's take abortion for example. Right, and then we're gonna get back to Israel. What are your thoughts on abortion?
I mean,
pro-life or pro-choice?
well, I think that's a simple way of putting it out. But me personally, I believe in personal autonomy. So absolutely, a person should have the right to their own body decisions. So I'm 100% pro-choice.
Okay, but do you think the narrative is simple as just pro-life or pro-choice, or is it's a little bit more colorful than that?
It's way more complicated because I know a lot of people who are pro-choice that still say they wouldn't be able to go through an abortion themselves. So that in itself creates a lot of nuance. And so with the decision that just got handed down a few weeks ago, a lot of people, that, including myself, on the ground, you may be one way or the other, but at the end of the day, no one knows how they're going to act in a certain situation. And so I'm pro-choice, but I'm not going to shit on people who are pro-life, quote unquote. I'm not going to do that. To me, it's not an issue where it's not up to me to shun people who have their view one way or the other. I just have my view. I keep it that way. I don't think the decision should have been made. No, I don't think it should have been made. But at the end of the day, like you said, it has been used as a political football. And, for the people who were for, who are pro-abortion, something could have been done about it a long time ago and it wasn't done, which opened the door for that possibility to happen in the first place. And that's kind of the way I look at it.
I don't think abortion should be an issue that we even, as if we're like an advanced or a civilized society.
Right. Yeah, it's not even an issue. In a lot of countries, it's not an issue.
Talking over abortion should be something that we even like talk or discuss.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, we make these things oversimplified, right? Pro-life, pro-choice. If you're pro-life, that means you want to take control of my body. And if you're pro-choice, it means like you're a murderer, you're a baby murderer. These are the two things. And right now, if you try to debate anybody, you're like, I'm pro-life. It's like, well, what if a 10-year-old gets raped? Are you pro 10-year-old not being able to take the 10-year-old who got raped and got pregnant, not having the ability to get abortion, right? That's literally
that's as far as the discourse goes.
Right. It's like, well, and then I'll be like, well, what do you think a baby should be aborted a day before it's born? Right. These are the two conversations. It goes back and it's like CNN versus Fox. We're just buying. Like sometimes when I have conversations with people, I'm like, okay, you watch Fox, you watch CNN, because these are like bullet points, that we're just like keep blabbering at each other
yeah,
without getting into like the nuance. right? So now you ask me that question. Do I think I consider myself pro-life, for example, right? Now, should a 10-year-old that is raped, that is pregnant, should carry a baby to full term? Absolutely not.
No.
I don't know anybody who would agree that that's okay. So why are you even using it as a
for sure
as a point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other hand, do I think that someone should have the ability to just walk into a abortion clinic 2 months before they have a baby and abort their baby with no questions asked? Absolutely not. Because you don't know what that person's going through at that time, right? Or we gotta have some respect for life. Like, what if that person changes their mind? You know, like with I think it was with Planned Parenthood, they don't ask questions. You want to go get an abortion? Come on right in. They'll do it. No questions asked. Why you're trying to do it? Why, you know? Maybe you never know. Like, you know. So I think there's a lot of nuances in this whole thing about abortion, and as a like a first world country, as an advanced society, arguing over these things is it's just, to me it seems that it's just a tool. It's a tool that's designed to engage people and divide people anytime they want you distracted. Right?
I agree with that for sure.
That's my perspective on the whole abortion issue. I think there is a place where, you know, it's necessary and it should be done. And, you know, a doctor, you know, a doctor can, you know, make that decision, or family can make that decision, and it shouldn't be a debate for everybody to just get involved, right? And it seems like these narratives or these things just get more and more extreme every time, right? So like abortion went from what do they say? Rare, safe, and rare and safe, to now like, let me just do whatever I want anytime I want, right? So
but for me, it's like I don't even, like I was telling Martine, it's not worth my time to argue about it, because to me there's just way more important things. And for me, I think it's kind of disingenuous, because a lot of the people who were upset about it, for sure, there were, like, a lot of these people were women. But the thing about it is that it's also a class issue as well. And I feel like a lot of those voices aren't as reasonable as ours, like, per se, because you have basically the evangelical perspective versus, it's like a white Christian evangelical perspective versus the white super liberal perspective. But you don't have any in between perspectives that combat those two.
But those are all like such a small percentage of the total population.
They are, but the way they project it, they make it seem like it's bigger than that, and then they box you into this lane versus that one.
Exactly.
But that's just like a lot of the Black people I grew up with and stuff. Like, have you talked to those people to see their views on it? They have very different views about culture issues like abortion. Because for me, it's just like, I try to keep this stuff out, because I believe in separation of church and state. That's me personally. And so these types of issues, it's like it kind of falls into separation of church and state for me. And myself being a free thinker, being an atheist, I'm just like, okay, I've said what I had to say, but I keep it at that. But it shouldn't be an issue that takes the number one spot. Like, this should be issue 1,900, it shouldn't be the number one talking point. Right now, it just shows how dumb and ignorant the population is, and how easily manipulated people are into, instead of talking about Ghislaine Maxwell, which is something that's super, super serious. We're talking about a cultural issue that's meant to divide and conquer people.
Well, I mean, I think, like I said, if you, like you just said it, it's not the biggest issue we would face, right? Then why are we talking about it? Maybe it's used as a tool to distract you and divide you from something else, right? So let's take that one step further. What happened when Roe v. Wade came? What else happened during when this thing came out with Roe v. Wade? There was a couple other things. Well, the one other thing that happened at the same time, magically, was the gun debate.
Oh, no, yeah, Wade, no doubt.
and then the gun debate.
Those are the two,
like two together, like going back and
it's
forth.
It always goes together. Yeah,
you're overstretched trying to think all of this. So you got the right got Roe v. Wade, the left got the gun bill, which, you know, if you read the gun bill, it wasn't even really a gun bill. All it was a money grab, because all the states got a bunch of money to go spend all this, but everybody, you know, but it gave people two things to just like keep fighting, right? But there's one other thing happened that wasn't really covered, or it just like kind of was swept under the rug.
And what was that?
What do you think? I mean,
oh damn, man! Shit, you interviewing me, aren't you, Ben?
No, I just because not a lot of people paid attention, and not because they didn't pay attention, because it wasn't talked about.
You say it was around the same time as the Roe v. Wade and the gun control laws. Well, obviously the Ghislaine Maxwell.
That was one of them. Yeah. And what happened when what else happened?
But I've been following that a lot.
Okay, so what happened with the Ghislaine Maxwell went to prison, and what else happened like 2 days later?
After Ghislaine, I don't know, man.
I
probably do know, but you tell me.
R. Kelly got convicted.
Yeah, that happened.
Like,
yeah.
What are the chances that these things?
Oh yeah, happened within the same time frame.
Together, right? But what else happened? These are the things that we all heard, right? But what did we not hear?
I don't know.
Biden went to the G7.
Oh yeah. The G7.
And what happened then? What did the United States do?
I don't know. I just heard about the G7. I heard about the Bilderberg too. I mean, I was following that a little bit.
So what happened then?
I don't know.
What did the United States do?
I don't know.
The United States committed, what is it, 600 or 700 billion dollars infrastructure package.
Okay.
And nobody heard about it. We're going through like the biggest sort of economic and financial crisis in our history, right? But we said we don't have money, or we can't, resolve homelessness. We can't do any of these things. We don't have enough money. There's not a budget for it. We can't control any of these things. Yet we go and we commit $600 billion, right? Infrastructure help, to give money to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
That's what we did. That's what really happened. But we were distracted with Roe v. Wade. We were distracted with the gun bill. And then they kind of swept Ghislaine Maxwell under the rug. And the biggest thing was we passed this thing that nobody heard of. That's what is the impact of that kind of money being spent or given away? That commitment is going to have to our future as a country.
Well,
does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
The point I'm trying to make?
We're
all sitting there, fighting each other over my body, my choice, and
they're
when
fighting,
you
and
start
then
bringing
they've already
my
snuck in the
body,
back door.
yeah, my
they've
body,
stolen all the
my
money.
choice. And they're like, well, if it's your body, my choice, then why did you want to try to take the vaccine? The vaccine is my body, my choice.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's all the distractions. So what I've learned is that when these things come up, I look to see what else is happening that's not being covered. Because that's where the real deal is. That's where things are really happening. Right? So I know we got carried off.
No. So before we go back to the Israel-Palestine, so that's what a cover story is. I mean, that to me, that seems like the function of a cover story. Now, when they say cover story, they're covering up other shit.
Right. But there is a cover up of the cover up.
There's a cover up of the cover up.
Right.
Yep.
So I say there are three things in order to get there is what they tell you happened, right? Then there's the conspiracy, and then there is what really happened.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm following.
So there are like three stages. Because you have what they're gonna tell you is this, and then there's gonna be a bunch of conspiracies that they're gonna see, like conspiracy theories, and that's a lot of times is also a distraction. Right. So while you're playing with this, but the truth is somewhere behind all of it.
Yep.
Okay.
I like that, man.
Now going back to the Israel and Palestine conflict. I think that is also a tool. It's something that's never meant to be resolved.
I got you.
No matter what. I mean, we've been trying to resolve these things for 50 years. Right? We've been trying to resolve Roe v. Wade since the 80s or 70s.
73. Yep.
Right. And we're back to square one.
Back to square one again. Yep.
Do you understand? These things are not meant to be resolved. So you can spend the rest of your life fighting over it, banging your head against the wall, saying, oh, Republican, Democrat, where these things are part of the same unit designed to just kind of distract you while everything else is just being done behind your back. So once you take that, once you start taking that perspective, then life also becomes a lot easier. That you're not as stressed out. You're not, constantly fighting with other people, because you realize that these are just a distraction.
Well, I think you have to whatever you're passionate about, but you also have to pick and choose your battles for sure, because it's like we were talking about in the first episode. The conflict is happening all over the world. It's not just in Africa, the Middle East. It's happening in Latin America. It's happening here. So you have to pick and choose your battles. And like you said, if you go too headstrong in it, you just become so invested in that particular aspect of it. But you also have a whole world out there, and you can't defeat the whole world. You have to be very smart, and you have to calculate and put your energy into what you think you can, help advance.
So let's go back. So let's go back to this whole Israel and Palestine conflict, right? And I'm gonna give you, you're sort of playing. I'm not saying you're wrong or anything. You're playing the side of like Palestine, Israel is taking the side. I'm gonna play the other end of it. A different perspective on the whole situation. So this has been happening for like 40 or since the foundation of Israel, right? They went through wars and the 6-Day War and all these things happened. Israel gets support from the United States. Palestine also gets support from the United States and other Arab countries, right? Now, one thing we got to keep in mind that a lot of these Muslim countries, they talk about Palestinians are being ethnically cleansed, and it's a genocide that's going on, and that, you know, there's all these things happening. There are so many rich Arab and Muslim countries, very, very wealthy and powerful ones, you know, around the globe that can support Palestine. They could help them build. They could do a lot of these things. Why hasn't it happened in 40 years? If they really wanted to, they could give, you know, Israel was a desert. When the Jews moved into Palestine, it was a desert, right? There was nothing there. There was nothing there. And they built a country in the desert, out of the desert, out of dirt. They didn't have any resources. They had nothing, right? And there's never in a history there ever been a country that went from zero to where they are,
right,
in this amount of time, and becoming so advanced where they're able to export their technology and everything else, you know, to the world. Why, if you want to take the other person, why couldn't these Arab countries, you have Saudi Arabia, you have all these oil producing companies with trillions of dollars, with, you know, all this capability, all this money, why couldn't they just take a piece of, I don't know, desert in Jordan and turn it into a new Palestine, into a new oasis? Why hasn't it been done?
So
why hasn't it been done?
No. Before I get to that point, so you're saying that there were no people there at all?
I didn't. No. I'm not saying there weren't any people.
Oh, okay,
there.
okay. I'm just trying to clarify.
What I'm saying is, the place there was nothing there. It wasn't like we took,
infrastructure.
Like, Russia took over Ukraine and they invaded it. Like it wasn't like that, right? And the other question is, you know, at least the my side, though, I would argue, is that going back to the money that Israel receives from the United States, and the Palestinians also get aid, right? The difference between Israel and Palestine is the Israeli government or the Israeli people, every time they get that aid, they invest it in their own people to build infrastructure, to give better education, to grow their own country, to build a nation, right?
Yeah, but the United States is not a neutral body. You're making it seem like the United States is a neutral body when even if Palestine,
we're talking about you get $1 billion, and let's say I get $3 billion. Right?
Why do you get more than I get?
No, let's just say.
Okay.
Fine, right? It's still $1 billion. Right? You can do a lot with $1 billion, right? So one of the perspectives that I guess me as a person who's Jewish, or this is at least this is my side of the story, is that the Palestinians take all that money and they invest it in hatred towards Israel, building tunnels, and you know, getting brainwashing people into going and blowing themselves up and killing other Jews and like Israelis, where Israel invested that money in their own military to try to protect themselves. Do you see the different?
I see that, but that seems like I said, I feel like that just the whole U.S. influence, because it's not just Israel and Palestine, there are other people getting involved with those two. And so we can't see it as like simply Israel and Palestine. There are other players involved in the game. It's not just those two. And so
Israel,
I think there's been a little disingenuous, because even if Palestine gets the aid, I don't think that, like you said, the government.
Where's the money going? Where's the aid going?
as far as the aid is concerned, I agree with you on that point. And I've heard other people who are even pro-Palestine advocates. There have been people that said that the authorities, or what are they doing with the money? Like this same question comes up. It's not getting to the people. It's not getting to the people. Yeah,
they have the Palestinian people have a lot of they go to school. They can go to Israeli universities. You go to Jerusalem, and the university is a lot of Arabs who go to school there.
Mm-hmm.
There are Israeli Arabs who live in Israel, who live in Jerusalem. They don't have any conflict with each other.
Mm-hmm.
People, you haven't been to Israel, right? So your idea is Israel is just like bombings and there's just like people like shooting at each other all the time. It's not like that.
I don't think that that's not
general perspective.
No, I get what you're saying on that side. That's the perspective they get for sure. But I've seen a lot of stuff where I think it's ideological though, and it happens on both sides. Like you were saying before, I've seen it where these people are being interviewed in Israel, and they say the most most hateful shit towards Palestinians. Like it's the most phobic stuff ever. And then you get on the other side too, and it's like where is the truth in that? You know, I definitely see that point. But the people I've ran into, and again, it also has to do with the fact that I'm in the United States. That's the only perspective I have. I don't have, I've never been to Palestine. I've never been to Israel. And I don't have that same relationship like you do. But I can say this much. I just know that the lobby here for Israel works a lot harder. And I know that lobby has definitely framed and it's captured, honestly, both political parties. The uniparty is what I call it, is captured the Republicans to the point where you campaign off of Israel. You campaign for being pro-Israel. And both parties agree with this stance. You know, whether it's a right or wrong stance, they agree with that stance. And to me, that's a very domineering sort of approach. To have that much interest just for one side of the equation. You know, if it's a human crisis, then it should be distributed accordingly. It shouldn't be favoritism towards one area versus the other. And then you have the AIPAC lobby is very strong. I get AIPAC emails all the time, and I'm not even subscribed to their newsletter. And they're like, Biden did this to help Israel. Trump did this to help Israel. I'm like, why am I getting all these like ads and stuff? And it's like all the time. Right. And that's
so let's talk about the aid money. You're talking about the lobbying to get money for Israel.
For sure.
Right?
Definitely.
To go to the military, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're saying this is going for the military.
Right.
Who gets the money? Like when Israel gets $10 billion for military aid,
mm-hmm.
Where does that money go?
I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming it goes to the military. I don't know.
It goes to the military? And what does the military do with it?
They use it to build their weapons and pay their contractors.
No. They don't build their weapons. They use it to buy weapons from American military companies, weapons companies.
Right.
So the money that America gives to Israel comes right back
to the United States.
Gotcha.
I see what you're saying.
By buying military weapons, right?
Mm-hmm.
For the Israeli military, right? So who is the lobbying really working for? Is it for Israel? Or are they lobbying for the weapons companies in the United States?
The military industrial complex, for sure. Absolutely. And that definitely has a part to do with it too, correct? Because as you know, and you probably are yourself, like I'm very anti-war, and it all goes into that. Like it's like absolutely no. I don't care if it's Israel, Ukraine, or whatever. It's like, why? Like for what? Like for what reason? There's never a good reason. But that's a good point that you bring up too, because it shows that it's just circular. It goes right back. You know, that what's the real purpose behind it? Is it to help quote unquote Israel, or is it to, you know, increase the military industrial complex.
So now let's take that logic a step farther.
Okay.
With that in mind and that in perspective, is there a reason why they would want to resolve this Israeli conflict?
No, not if you base it on the premise that you have war contractors and all the different weaponry and stuff. There's no incentive because the profit is in the war.
Right, because
it's to keep it going on.
If the problem is resolved, which it can be done.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, you can, if they wanted to, between these Arab countries trying to, support Palestine, help them rebuild their state, doing all of that, and creating peace and starting trade,
mm-hmm.
It can be done tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
But there is no incentive.
There's no incentive
to do it because there is no profit in that for those people who benefit from this type of conflict. And so in a way, we're all stuck in the middle. And and I think is we keep going back, Israel, Palestine, Israeli people back, Arab people are like this. Like it goes back to the same thing I said about abortion. It's something that is designed not to be resolved.
Right. I tell you, man, I like that logic. I thought you were going to actually go more into the meat of matters, but now that I think of it more, hearing you discuss this, maybe it's always just been a huge buildup and distraction to begin with, and but that hurts me a lot knowing that people are dying because of that, though.
Of course.
Yeah, and but like you said, it's all interconnected. And this interconnectedness is not just people, military, nation states, humanitarianism, non-humanitarianism, monsterism versus non-monsterism. We're all connected some kind of way. And this is a great example of reminding people that this is, these people are very inhumane people in the government. The governments are very much monsters.
Machine.
They're machines. These are machines, and the way people just adore these politicians it gets on my nerves. I'm just like, how do you not see that they have these crooked sides to them? That they're terrible people. A lot of these people are terrible people, and the fact that they know all this information that we're talking about should make any concerned citizen just be that much more concerned.
I mean, yes, and I think that the percentage of people, or the number of people that are involved that really know what's going on is very small. The rest of the people who work in APAC, trying to support Israel or get support for Israel, they really believe that this is what needs to be done to
they're
help.
Doing the right thing.
They're helpful,
Mm-hmm.
In the court, they want to be helping, right? Yeah. But again, their perspective is that, okay, Arab people do this. Like I said, they talk about boycotting Israel, for example, right? The BDS, it's going around college campuses, a lot of that, right? And there is a video. I mean, there's a bunch of them about Israel's contribution to the world, or to I guess society in general around the world. We got to look at what's come out of Israel, right? Like a lot of the chips from like Intel the latest chips are designed in Israel. A lot of technology that we use today comes out of Israel. A lot of the biggest cybersecurity companies that protect, like, I think 90% of the financial institutions that we have around the world are Israeli companies, are Israeli technology. Right? Shazam? Shazam? The app Shazam?
Of course, the music app.
Yeah. Do you know the story behind Shazam? Like how it created the technology, where it came from? So the underlying code underneath Shazam was a military intelligence software that was developed in like one of the most elite units in Israel called Unit 8200.
Oh, okay.
It was a software they used to recognize and decipher terrorist chatter and activities, like noise, like sound, to identify terrorists.
And they created that into a music?
And the guy who was, was responsible for developing that software for the military, after he left, he realized he could use that similar technology to build an app that would listen to bits and pieces of music and information and recognize what song it is. So
that is innovative, man.
What else? I mean, there is every time you pick up the phone and it says your call may be monitored or recorded. I think that came, like the base of that came from the Israeli military, again, trying to record, like when they're trying to track terrorists, where they record all these voices. So they're able to decide. You can test this. I've tested it and it worked. They integrated this technology into that, where you can detect when a customer who's calling you is what state of mind they're in, if they're angry or if they're pissed off or if they're, how they feel. And based on that, the algorithm will put you in front of the line. So if you're an angry customer who's calling, let's say FedEx or whatever, they don't want to keep you waiting and make you even more angry.
Upset.
So they put you in front of the call. All right. So next time you call one of these companies, right, big companies, try like breathing heavy into the phone and like punch buttons.
Oh gosh.
Okay. Based on that, the algorithm will detect that this guy is angry because you're breathing fast. You're and it detects that, and you get to a customer service much faster.
That sounds very much like this artificial intelligence stuff that's coming out now.
But this has been around for 10 years, 10, 15
already
years.
Been out for 15 years.
Yeah. But these are small ones. There's a lot of these. My point is, people talk about, we've already sort of figured out that this conflict is designed not to be resolved, right? So we also have to, at the same time, see to give credit to a lot of the things that has come out, like in front, Israel, or the contribution that's made by Israel to the rest of the world as well. It's not all that Israel has done this, they've taken this, they've done this. Right. But in their process of building their own country, they've also been able to do all these great things. Some people might say, okay, these things are not a big deal, but there's countless other things in medicine and security and technology and a lot of these things that that Israel has contributed, that we also need to be,
it's just
conscious of and talk about. It's just SodaStream too. Have you heard of SodaStream? SodaStream was designed and manufactured in Israel.
It's not that. It's just it's not that I don't understand. And I know you're not really. It's directed really towards people who have like this developed ignorance, because we do have these tunnels of thought, and we can all get caught up in it. That's why I brought you on specifically for this particular topic, because it's something that I don't know a ton about. I only know about it because of what I've been informed over the years, but I don't have any personal connection with it to the point where I can contextualize these things the same way you can. And I would say that this is one of geopolitics in general is an area that I'm still in development as far as learning. Like I have my areas of expertise, but geopolitics is one of those things that I'm still sort of, I'm growing, constantly every day. And so I appreciate these conversations and
Right.
exchanges when it deals with these very polarizing topics.
Right. But I mean, I want you to know, I don't think I tried to necessarily right now defend Israel. The perspective I gave was that we can talk about and go in circles about the conflict between Israel and Palestine, but we're not going to get anywhere.
Not going to get anywhere at all.
This is something that is designed not to be resolved.
But that's what I'm saying.
Like the abortion issue.
But that's what I'm saying. This is like, for me, this felt way more productive than us going back and trying to like cite leaders in the Palestinian territories versus the Israeli government. I mean, that's fucking pointless. Like, there's no point. We just be arguing back and forth all day. You know, it's like that. You don't get anything from that. Just for the listeners to know, when we mention AIPAC, that stands for American Israeli Public Affairs Committee, I think is what it stands for. Because I know a lot of my audience may not understand some of these acronyms. And so I thought it was important to at least acknowledge what AIPAC stands for, AIPAC, which is a huge American Israeli lobby. You know, DC is, you all know about DC and all the lobby activity that happens there. I wanted to get your views, man, about, since we've kind of talked about government and this interconnectedness, I want to ask an innocent question. I don't know if it's really innocent. What do you understand by the word deep state? When you hear someone say that word deep state, do you have any connection with that word? Does it mean anything to you at all? Does it exist? Or is it just something that's fabricated altogether?
I mean, deep state would be sort of what we just talked about. This whole industrial like military complex, right? That is hidden behind the lobbying that goes to support, get money for Israel, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's my definition of a sort of a deep state.
Mm-hmm.
But some people in like conspiracy circles take that to like extreme, and I think that's also by design to kind of throw you off in a way.
Where do you draw?
Sound crazy.
Where do you draw the line, though? Because a lot of the general public doesn't. They feel uncomfortable when they hear the word deep state or conspiracy theorists. They already have their mind sort of like, oh, well, you're fucking crazy. Like, I can't talk to you about something, because they've already been programmed to think that that's not something that you really legitimize. You never legitimize people who use that sort of language in the first place. And I've seen it a lot. I've seen more people, because I do identify with the left, like the real left, not this fake left, this fake social justice left that's always in our faces. But they even not use that language. The right and the left use this language that are basically the people who are anti-establishment. They don't agree with any of this. These super capitalistic endeavors, these super militaristic endeavors that are designed to basically keep the 1% of the world who owns 88% of the resources and the wealth. That's a fact, people. Yeah. Julian Assange says that in his book.
Yeah, you know what it's called?
What's that?
NATO.
Yeah. Expand on that.
I mean, we have the World Economic Forum, NATO,
G7 countries,
Nations, G7. But these are also small group of powerful companies, corporations, and yeah, we have corporations that, you know, have so much influence that they can, you know, sort of direct the world in a certain direction.
Which is part of the deep state. But see, what do you tell people, even just based on these few premises that you've already established that I 100% agree with, and we've talked about these things before, what do you say to people who tell you, why do you have to say it that way? Why do you use the word deep state? Why don't you choose another word, which is absolutely superficial in my opinion?
So tell them, choose another word. What word do you want me to call it?
Exactly.
We'll just call it NATO. We'll call it World Economic Forum.
Mm-hmm.
Call it I mean, what do you want me to call it? Deep
Right.
state, it just seems fitting,
For sure.
Right? It's something that's hidden behind something that you see, like something that's controlled by something that you don't see, a hidden hand.
So my whole thing to the audience, I tell the people in the audience who are skeptical of these terminologies, don't get caught up in the team game just because people who you don't agree with politically use certain terms and they feel uncomfortable with you, don't mean that they're wrong about the use of the term. And I think that we get so caught up in that. No, there is an entity or entities that do pull the strings in world governments by design. And you can talk about, again, we have to be careful with the words we use because we are under mass censorship. And that's why something I'm going to share later, I'm not even going to link it. I'm just going to say it out in the interview, because certain stuff you link now, they would take off your links. They would close your channels down. They would give you warnings and basically tags telling you can't post that anymore, which is absolutely crazy to me that anyone would be okay with someone saying that you can't post certain information. So to me, when someone tells me that I can't do something, it almost gives validity to it. And I don't know how you feel about those sort of situations.
About the censorship?
Yeah. That's going on now.
What else spells deep state than all the censorship?
Do you feel like it's always been this bad, or is it just going to keep getting worse?
I think it hasn't been this bad because we haven't been awake to it. Right? Now people are sort of, we call this the waking up to this thing that there is the deep state, and it's sort of their reaction. They're trying to censor you because if it was nothing, right, then they'll be able to easily dismiss it and it'll just go away. If it's not true, then it's not going to be able to hold up. But the more when you're actively censoring it, and you're like so hard going against, how many things were considered conspiracy theory that came true in the past 3 years?
A lot of things.
Right? And they said, oh, it's just a conspiracy and it came true. Like first, let's take, for example, the vaccine passport. That was a conspiracy theory at the beginning of COVID. People who said, oh, there's going to be vaccine passports. And we're, oh, that's a crazy conspiracy theory. That vaccines were going to be mandatory, right? And this is not like a pro or anti-vax or pro, and it has nothing to do with it, right? That they're going to be mandating vaccines, that you have to take it in order to be able to travel. And people, oh, that's crazy. And they even came out and said, oh, we'll never make you do this. We'll do that. And then 6 months later, they'll go, everybody's gonna, we're gonna do that.
Fucking crazy, man. Right? They do it in your face. They did. It's almost like they're daring. Let's see if we can get this segment of the population to get on board with it. And then we can change it whenever we want to. We can always change our position.
Right.
Conveniently, and everyone just falls in line and does it.
Right. And then they censored everybody who did it. And now that censorship go more and more and more. And it wasn't like when the conspiracy was no more a conspiracy, they went back and said, oh, well, sorry, we made a mistake. Right. Then if the media is truly independent, they should have the ability to go back and,
and retract that shit.
After retract the shit and say, hey, we made a mistake and we're going to do better. Right. But now it's gotten worse.
They're going to do better.
But it's only gotten worse. So it only tells you that it's being controlled. Right. It just gives even a bigger case that there is a deep state that exists.
Yeah, man. It's just like you can't even. I noticed that at one point it went to you couldn't talk about certain what was it you couldn't talk about CV19, like that was off limits completely. You talk about that, you talk about the VAX, you completely off if it's not just 100% in line with what the idiot Fauci says, like that's what I call him. But
Fauci, World Economic,
the World Economic Forum, any of them.
No, the World Health Organization.
World Health, or the WHO. If anything that they say, because keep in mind, Bennett, you and I, we're not scientists. We don't know what we're talking about. Only the one scientist on television, he has all the answers. The guy who fucked up the AIDS crisis, the guy who thought that you could get AIDS from sitting your ass on the toilet seat. This is the same person that we're taking that information from now. That's apparently going to resign in 2 years, I think. I think once the corpse that's in office right now, once he gets out, I think he's going to get out too.
Good word for it.
Oh, my bad. I'm so sorry. But I mean, most of my audience know I can't stand fucking Biden. I mean, they know that by now. Anyway.
By the way, something to make. Did you see what they did to the, where Biden fell off his bike?
I saw that shit.
Somebody wanted to Google Maps and put a thing on it and called it Brandon Falls.
I saw that shit on there. Hilarious. No, but going back to this deep state whole premise, now that the audience, whoever's with us still, they're still listening to this.
With us still.
No, I'm for sure, because you know how it is. Like once people kind of cut themselves off, it's like, fuck, I'm not going to listen to them anymore. Or, hey, I'm ride and die with them now. So once you guys have absorbed all this in and you've accepted that there is a deep state, what we tried to explain, how does the Maxwell Epstein opponent fall into this? Because I'm looking at this. I'll pretend to be a casual and not know much about it, but I'm trying to put two and two together. Okay, Donald Trump, Ivana Trump, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Anthony Blinken, all these people know one person that mysteriously died. Apparently he died. I don't know if he got killed, committed suicide, or got offed. I don't know what happened to Epstein, but we're supposed to believe that all these people have nothing to do with anything. They just happen to know this one guy that's just this evil pedophile trafficking kids and stuff. How do all these people in the government know this one person? And then you add the Maxwell layer on top of it, which I don't know how much you know about her backstory, but can you kind of like enlighten people into why would you not think that there's something going on between all these different individuals? Or are we just dumb conspiracy theorists?
Is your question, what do I think of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell?
No, what do you think about the interconnectedness of all these individuals? The Trumps, the Clintons, like this is public knowledge that these people hung out with these people. I mean, going to weddings and all this shit. But we look like crazy people for suggesting that, okay, wouldn't it make sense that they're on the planes and everything else? Like, why is it that if this makes sense, what come that doesn't make sense too? Why don't they go a step further and incriminate all these people for the criminals that they are? Why don't they do that? Why don't the public do that?
I'm sort of, I hold two perspectives. Like I haven't made up my mind exactly with this whole the Jeffrey Epstein story. Mm-hmm. In a sense that whether this whole idea of him being a pedophile, for example, mm-hmm. and child trafficking, whether that is a cover for the conspiracy to distract from something else, or it is that. Mm-hmm. 100%. I don't know if that makes any sense. I don't know whether it's the story of him being a pedophile and child trafficking and Clinton traveling to his island to, have sex with underage girls. I'm sure he had sex with prostitutes, whether they were underage or not, whether there were literally little children involved or not. I don't know if that story is sort of the distraction. right?
Mm-hmm.
Or it is actually true. I don't know if it isn't. I think it was definitely a blackmail operation. That
Okay.
that that one thing I know.
Okay.
I am almost convinced that it was tied to intelligence, and
Wait.
it include multiple. There were like a blackmail shop
Mm-hmm.
that and I think the United States was involved, the MI6 and the Mossad from Israel. You know, as somebody who's pro-Israel, I think there were also involved just because of Maxwell's father,
Absolutely.
Robert
Yeah.
Maxwell,
Robert Maxwell, super
who
spy.
was a super spy, and he wasn't just a spy for the Mossad and Israel. I think he was just like a business guy. He just bought and sold intelligence, and he was just a facilitator of stuff, for the intelligence community.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
These
Yeah,
people are in our government too right now. That's just like I was astonished when I found out that Blinken's stepdad like was really close to Maxwell, like Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine's dad.
yeah. I mean,
Sam
who do you think
Pisar.
hired Jeffrey Epstein
What do you mean
to
hired him?
so uh, Bill Barr's father
Yes, yes.
was a head of a school
Mm-hmm.
that hired Jeffrey Epstein to be a teacher
Mm-hmm.
at the school that he was running,
Damn.
right? So what are the chances of like like what are the chances that all these people are like somehow connected and it's right in our face, and yet we can't ask any questions, and the media seems not to
Complete
be
blackout.
interested at all in covering any of this.
Mm-hmm.
So was it intelligent connected somehow to intelligence? I think yes. Was it a blackmail operations? Yes. Was it did they do like fucked up shit? Yes. Was it all 100% pedophilia and child trafficking? I'm not sure. I'm sure there is, if you really wanted to blackmail somebody, you can take him somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
give him some drugs where the guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing,
Mm-hmm.
bring a thing, and the guy where he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. They put him in a situation and where he's compromised,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that's the blackmail operation.
Yeah, but
You
see,
understand what I'm trying to say?
no. I get what you're saying though, and the intelligence angle makes complete sense. Like considering what we know about, the Maxwells and the Epsteins, like that makes a lot of sense.
These are
Their
the most
connections.
powerful people in the world that these people are bringing, right? So if you want to make policies, if you want to have control, right, and keep people in line, they need to be compromised. That's one of my things. I think at the highest levels of in anything, in order for you to be able to perpetuate some sort of control, the people who get more and more to the top, they have to be compromised in order to keep them in check.
Mm-hmm.
And they all know that each other is compromised. So everybody's in the part of the club, so everybody knows that they're safe.
So that sounds like to me that even within the deep state, there's a level to the deep state. That's some people who may be at the top of the pyramid. And then you have the people kind of like the mafia where you have the top person and then you have the people below that person.
It's like the pimp and the hookers.
Mm-hmm.
The hookers are compromised a lot of times in a way that they're addicted to drugs,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how they keep them doing the same thing. In this case would be like a blackmail, a photo, a video, or of something that these people have done.
I don't know, man. It's just like the whole thing, the 20 years with Maxwell, which I doubt she'll serve the 20 years. Like, I don't know if she's going to even survive that long, just with all I can't imagine. To me, it sounds like a couple of things happen. She has either too much information on these people. There's someone that's even more powerful than she and Epstein were, or that she's already made a deal with the people who have already been implicated. And that's the reason why the media is kind of like not even enticing. It's just like, okay, 20 years, that was shut off, whatever, on to the next thing. Because that's too big of a thing, you know, to reveal, I guess, to the public. Like, who would be prepared to get...
She would never, I don't think she would ever reveal that.
But do you think a deal was already made?
About what?
Like, basically, like, I'm going to get 20 years because she's obviously connected with the higher ups. I mean,
she's dispensable. She's not at the top of the pyramid. She's not part of the thing.
Right.
She's just part of the operation. Now she just needs to be put away.
Uh-huh.
So that not everybody else gets compromised. Right? You don't want the system to come down. And like, who was the judge overseeing the Ghislaine Maxwell thing?
Oh, shit, yeah.
Like James Comey's daughter?
That is crazy.
Or something.
Yeah, man. Fucking James Comey. Yeah.
Right. She was related to, like, what are the fucking odds? And that like, nobody could go into the courtroom, nobody could see this live, but then Johnny Depp and fucking Amber Heard had wall-to-wall coverage.
Wall-to-wall coverage.
The thing. Like, you have to start asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why are these things happening? Forget about the pedophilia, like, forget about all the crazy shit they've done.
Mm-hmm.
One basic question you have to ask is, like, why is one thing who's compared to the other is fucking irrelevant, is getting all this coverage, while the other thing is nobody has, even there is no video recording of it. The media is not allowed, and only certain news outlets are allowed to go in to be able to report. And there's like, so like the flow of information is like completely blocked off, and the judge who's residing it is somehow James Comey's, related to James Comey, who was dealing with all the Clinton stuff, right? Whose husband happens to be a visitor of Jeffrey Epstein's island. I don't know.
Absolutely crazy. You can't make this shit up. You cannot make it up. You cannot make it up.
And if you're ignoring it, or it's not in part of your, it's not in your radar, then to even question, then you need to evaluate your mental faculties and what you're being exposed to and the things that you consume, because it just doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. That it's not being covered.
And so I believe what's happening now too is so when the quote unquote the justice system doesn't execute what it's supposed to do, who becomes the new jury? The public does. And so I think that there's resistance against the public who doesn't buy the shit that's the official narrative. And so if we can't get justice the right way, we have to kind of create our own poetic justice. But people don't like that. Even when you don't agree with that, it's like, okay, whatever. They're going to get off the hook anyway because they're too powerful. But that don't mean I have to follow your line of thought about the rest of that shit. So why come I can't be my free thinking self and be, and have my wall up against that person, because to me, it's like you're saying I should accept it. I should accept the status quo anyway, because we should not be allowed to say that that's the bar. Like, is that what the justice system is now? Or are we just going to accept the fact that the rich and the powerful are always going to get off the hook? Is that going to be the case forever? Or are we going to actually start to go for these people? Like, and how do we even get the tools to go for these people if the whole system is already compromised?
Right. I mean, I think I wanted to have this conversation towards the end of like the later hour
Oh,
of
okay.
this podcast, but we can touch on it and we can go back because then we'll go into like sort of like the spiritual realm stuff.
Okay.
I think the whole system, part of the reason why we're experiencing all of it, because the system is just falling apart. It's just not able to sustain itself because it just doesn't work anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the people who are involved in it, you know, even the deep state in a sense, the people who are towards the top of this whatever pyramid it is are dying. Like they're look at yeah, when I'm saying, like, for example, Nancy Pelosi is at the head of this pyramid. She's like somewhere like way down, but she's got 1 foot in the grave. Biden's got 1 foot in the grave. Mitch McConnell's got 1 foot in the grave. Maxine Waters got 1 foot in the grave. Dianne Feinstein got 1 foot in the fucking grave. Bernie Sanders got 1 foot in the grave. Right? The whole Queen Elizabeth got 1 fucking foot in the grave. George Soros got 1 foot in the grave.
Good God, I cannot believe he's still alive.
What's his name? A lot of people are going to disagree. I can't believe I forgot his name. That's going to come to me.
It'll come to you.
Like, who's that? Like the Schwab,
Charles Schwab?
Not Charles Schwab. From the World Economic Forum.
Klaus
Schwab. You know, these guys are like old.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Henry Kissinger. That's what I was talking
Kissinger, about. Yep. Him.
He's got 1 foot in the grave, right?
Mm-hmm.
All these people who've been involved in all these things for so long, you know, I don't think their replacements, right, are necessarily as capable as they have been. One, because they've simply just haven't been there long enough.
Good
right?
point.
Because these people are like so old, have been in control for so long, right?
Mm-hmm.
That the system is about to change. That's what I think.
I like that. I like the way you put that.
I'm not necessarily saying this as fact, but
no, I like the way you put that though. I love that logical, man. That sounds very logical that the replacements are not going to be as competent as they were. Because
they're too late. They're not going to be able to like, they don't have enough experience. They haven't been there long enough to be able to really try to control. And you see, they're trying to control it. They're trying to do all these things, but I just don't think they're going to be able. They're able to do it, and they're just trying harder and harder. And everything that we're experiencing is going to sort of lead into this, like, you call it an explosion or a collapse or whatever, that it's going to be horrible and great at the same time. I remember this too, right in the beginning of COVID, we're talking about these what's happening in the world, and I said we're all in the process of dying. We're all going to die sort of and resurrect. Like, we're going to not literally die, but the system is dying, and a new thing will have to take its place in a way. And the system is dying. Right?
Okay.
None of these things that we're doing are working out for any of us. If
it's
we take
not.
this system that we have for our kids' generation, they're going to be doomed.
Yeah.
In a way. So let's go back to reality, and then we'll go back to
no. Oh, I like the way you said that. No, So you say you wanted to kind of invoke the spiritual element into this, because I know I do a lot of exploring, and like I said, I'm a true free thinker. Like my whole thing is this: like I've been an atheist since I was 23 years old, but I've always been attracted to different cosmovisions and different belief systems and different spiritual systems. And so to me, like I said, that's where I cut it off. I'm very clear cut. Okay, I'm an atheist, but I can coexist with anybody, anything, and live my life. I'm not going to let that just absorb my daily existence. Like, I know how to talk to people, I know how to communicate with other people, and I like to learn from other people, and I do love other people. So that's my whole idea, is just an individual thing, but it's not meant to condemn anybody else or any other system.
What do you mean by define atheist? What do you mean you're an atheist? You don't believe in God?
Yeah, that's all. Yeah. That's why I put it. I just don't believe in God. Whatever this idea of God has been, put into us, you know, over the years, the way, I was raised or whatever, organized religion. I don't believe that there's some person, definitely not the fact that it's defined by a man, woman, and stuff. To me, this sounds like a reflection of the human beings that created this imagination to begin with. And so I don't believe in a deity as far as like this all encompassing thing that's running the world, and I don't personally, but I understand why people do, because I was that person at one point. Like I said, it was up until the age of 23 that I even came to that conclusion for myself, and I'm okay with that decision. I get people in the spiritual realm for sure. I get that. And that's why I wanted you to also enlighten the people as well, because you seem to suggest that the spiritual world kind of helps us understand how these governments work. They help us understand how um, a lot of these systems work in the first place, based on the belief systems themselves, based on numerologies. That's something that I don't know a lot about, but I'm starting to learn about. Is that something that you necessarily
I
subscribe
don't.
to?
I not the way you described it. I think before we go into this, let's finish our conversation from like before, and we'll get into this. I want to talk to you about. Well, I want to talk about God and like what the definition and things like that. But let's finish our what we're talking about before,
Which is what?
which was this. Well, I think uh, that I think our we're going to be going through a lot of changes.
Mm-hmm.
Or we're talking about deep state and whether it exists, and I think that this whole political situation, the thing that we have going on, is the system is just it's failing. It's
Mm-hmm.
not serving anybody, and there is going to be a lot of changes that we're all going to experience that we're going to they're going to be hard. I mean, we already experienced like with inflation and money and just our just society. Our society's changing. Look how much it's changed in the past 3 years.
The deterioration in mental health.
Yeah, all of that. There's
Mm-hmm.
going to be a lot of that is happening, and I think it's important that we all need to start really just giving up on just this one perspective. That you have to seek multiple perspectives. The same thing, like just like we talked about abortion. We looked at it from two different ways, right? That we talked about Israel. You had your perspective, and I gave mine, and they can both be true, right? But at the same time, you have to make sure that you're not being played. So
Right.
I think we all sort of with everything that's happening and everything we've been told, our number one thing is to question everything, to
100%.
ask questions, to seek a different perspective and have a dialogue, not a fight back and forth between CNN bullet points and Fox bullet points.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And to be able to hear each other, because I think for the most part, if you stop taking the extremes, right, and really talk about the things that people want in everyday life, we'll have a lot more in common, but we're just being sort of divided.
Mm-hmm.
And and I think that we can take that in like multiple scales, from like, taking that to that's happening in America, but it's also happening around the world, and whether this is something that happens generally every few thousand years in the human civilization.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna keep that in mind, and I think we're gonna need each other more than ever as we're going through whatever it is that we're gonna be going through, whether it's economic collapse or famine or world war or whatever, that we need to let go of this sort of hate, and people need to start coming together.
I love that.
Helping each other out rather than just constantly fighting, because it's not going to serve anybody. And we're all sort of fighting we're fighting each other. We're fighting somebody else's war, not even somebody else's war. It's just one. They're pitting us against. We're being divided in order to fight each other, in order to keep a system that's
in
falling
place.
apart.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just at this like this theme, and it's about to just
break. It's about to break.
The more we are divided, the consequences of when this thing falls apart is going to be more of a catastrophe than just letting the system kind of die instead of it exploding.
100%.
That makes any sense.
It makes 100%, from a philosophical standpoint and a hands-on approach. I think that made sense. At least for me, it did. It made total sense.
All right. So now you want to go into which direction you want to go to?
No, I just I was curious about, man, I don't know a lot about this stuff, but I read a lot. I do a lot of internet diving. I know that Gematria is a thing, not more so than ever. It seems like I've seen people apply it to sports and religion and government and commerce, all these different avenues. Look, do you actually know a lot about Gematria?
I don't know a lot about Gematria. Is just a study of numbers, and whether the numbers have any meanings. And like me trying to explain this and talk, it's gonna sound crazy because like I'm gonna have to like try to cram 10 years of stuff into a couple of sentences. But
yeah,
Gematria is just all it is. It's a do I think Gematria has meaning? Absolutely. Where is it most? Does it Gematria in sports? I don't know. I don't know if it's that, if it's anything like that. But I think the base, like when it comes to Hebrew, I think the composition of the words and the way it's designed, it is a system that holds a lot of wisdom and knowledge, a lot of advanced knowledge that we have forgotten, that we need to understand. So going back to God, for example, like let's go back to God, and I think we'll lead into this. So you don't believe in God.
Correct.
Right? Is that fair to say? But what is your definition of God, or at least the God that you were told?
Yeah, the God that I was told was this all-encompassing being that was a man, very much defined, at least the churches I've gone to, the people I've talked to, defined as a man. And apparently, created us. I mean, that's the story I got anyway. And then you have all this doctrine, just like organized religion in general has. Everyone has their own book that they use, to sort of accompany their their belief system. And I just it never made sense to me, I guess, when I started going to college. And it wasn't even the college experience itself. I was just at a crossroads in my life. I was still discovering myself when I was 16, 17, 18 years old. But I had those same beliefs for a while, even when I was very much a practicing Christian. For a while, I was Catholic. For a while, I was Baptist. I grew up Baptist. But my parents now, I mean, no one in my family is really religious. Like, not even my grandmother. I mean, she is, but I mean, it's pretty tamed, I guess, compared to the people in her generation. I mean, she's almost 85 years old. So, considering how she is, her beliefs are relatively tame, I guess, compared to people in her age group. And my parents, especially, my parents are definitely not the most religious people. They're probably more spiritual than anything. And they just never pushed it down on us a lot. It's kind of like once I turned 12 or 13, they were like, Kiko, you just discovered the world for yourself. That's kind of how it was. And I've been that person ever since. I've just discovered the world for myself. And they've sort of just bred whatever they did into me. But it's like at the end of the day, I know I'm not going to be able to convince you of anything, because you're going to live your life and you're going to have your own experiences that are distinct from ours, and that's crossing generations, time, space, everything. And I've kind of just gone with that, but I've always been intrigued at the same time. I'm still intrigued by organized religion. I'm still intrigued by um, different spiritual systems around the world, not just, here domestically. And
So
that's kind of how I am. I mean, I love people. I naturally love people because I love languages, different cultures. So naturally, I'm going to like different systems as well, spiritual systems included.
so I mean, I agree. The whole idea of God being a being that's a male, that's a, you could call them masculine,
Mm-hmm.
not a male, but a being. So what if it's not like? I mean, I guess you're right. I've been taught that God is this dude with a white beard, with a stick sitting on a throne that's gonna, bang you over the head if you do something wrong, which is not
Right.
true. But I mean, I think there is a God. I don't define it as a man or necessarily even a being. That's a person. It's
Mm-hmm.
definitely not a person. That's just ridiculous. But does it encompass everything? I think yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not particularly religious or have been religious, but I've I've had enough experiences, and I've sort of like studied at this point. It's been like 10 years, maybe even longer, that my understanding of the Bible, at least the Old Testament,
Mm-hmm.
I believe in the Old Testament more than ever before.
Okay.
However, I think it's been misinterpreted.
Okay.
So I think everything that's in the Old Testament is true. There is a hidden layer beneath the Old Testament that's hidden, that our interpretation of religion and all of these things that we're taught is wrong, not the book.
I see what you're saying.
If that makes any sense. Just because you
Yeah, but
misinterpreted it in something and you perpetuate it for 1,000 years, right? It doesn't make the book wrong. It makes you or the person who made their interpretation wrong. Do you know what I mean?
I get what you're saying. But then again, you had different versions of the book that you're referring to.
No, there's only one version of it.
And which one? And which one is that?
I'm talking about the Old Testament.
The Old Testament. Okay, I got you.
Not the James Bible version, the King James version. I'm talking about the original. It's called the Masoretic text. And if you're really interested, you should look up this guy. His name is Stan Tenen.
What's his name?
Stan Tenen. STANTENAN. Okay. You should listen. This guy was an engineer. He's in like his 80s right now, but he discovered these things in the Old Testament that refers. I believe this based on not just what it says in the text, or just because I'm Jewish, but also certain experiences I've had, and all these like ancient texts and information that we've had, going back thousands of years. And I think the organized, I think we're at a point where we have to revisit all of these ideas that we've had with regards to God, with regards to religion, with regards to like traditions. I think they've served their purpose in a sense that it's carried the information from thousands of years ago to now, where we are now we're advanced enough, we're conscious enough, we have enough knowledge to be able to rediscover the information, right? To be able to help us to get through this next phase of our human evolution. And that has to do with, us going into the age of AI, and we didn't really get to talk about AI, which we can get into. But the purpose, I think that as much as it's sort of deviated us from where we're supposed to be, sort of divided us or things like that, it has, at least in terms of Judaism, I'm speaking specific Judaism, it's preserved that knowledge, the book, the information, since 5,000 years ago, or whatever it was, put into text. It's helped us carry it through time for where we are today, to be able to rediscover it, to go into our next evolution. Because I think there was a time where there was a human civilization, or a time where there was a civilization that was more advanced and more spiritual and more conscious and connected than we are today. That something happened, that it all changed, and the human civilization restarted. And we are today. Because you have the story of floods, and all the major religions, and the Buddhist religions is the Noah's flood, right? That sort of wiped out the whole world, and it was restarted again after that. And I think there is something there that we're not aware of, whether it's hidden, or it's been hidden, or I don't know. And it's just this sort of understanding that I have, and it's not easy to put into words, that given with everything that's happening, I think we're in a time in human history that there's a lot of changes that are about to take place, and it's going to be up to us how we are going to move forward. We either can go to the left, nothing with the people on the left, I'm just saying, and like sort of collapse, or we can live consciously and advance into a new civilization. Maybe humanity will split and one goes this way and just collapses while the other moves on to a new era or an era of time.
Yeah, but see, the way you present that, I'm on board with that. But the only issue I would have is that wouldn't we be able to come to that logical conclusion without the spiritual element anyway? Isn't that kind of like the natural order anyway?
What do you mean?
Don't
How
things
do we come to conclusion?
Don't things kind of build and then they collapse and then they rebuild again? Isn't that kind of like the natural order anyway? Like that's not based on an Old Testament or whatever it is. Like that's my thing, I see the Old Testament as a bunch of parables.
No,
like that to
absolutely
me.
Not. That's what we think, but it's not.
Okay.
I think it's much. No, I think there is the story, there is the surface story, and then underneath it, encoded within the text.
Kind of like the palimpsest.
Kind of like the what?
The palimpsest. In other words, it's like a revolving door with the letters and the numbers, and then there's something when you flip it over, there's a whole nother code behind that one.
Sort of, yeah. I think what needs to happen. So for a long time now, we've separated science and religion.
That's
religious
true.
people are saying the scientists are full of shit, and the scientists are saying everything this religion is a bunch of nonsense, bunch of like you said, it's a parable or whatever. I think that science and religion, or the religious scholars, need to come together, especially in physics and biology and like engineering, sciences and math. They need to come together because it needs to fuse together. Like you can't have science without consciousness, and you can't have just consciousness without science. Because they're connected together.
And but see, me listening, because you told me to listen to Terence McKenna, and I listened to about 7 or 8 different talks that he gave. And
did you listen to the one where he's doing the interview in the jungle, talking about time and the end of time?
No, I didn't.
The incidental object at the end of time, the eschaton.
No, I didn't watch it. I saw it on there, but I never clicked on it. But just so the audience isn't confused, I don't think a lot of people even know I didn't even know who he was until you brought him up. But wasn't he like an ethnobotanist, known for, I guess, the use of DMT and other psychedelia for, I guess, as a way to sort of enlighten people to, I guess, I don't know how you would describe it. Like, how would you describe it to someone?
I mean, he was a professor at USC.
Okay.
And I think I don't know if it was in anthropology, but he was like a physicist. He wasn't like a philosopher, physicist, mathematician, anthropologist. It was like a very well rounded sort of thinker. It was a free thinker that was doing psychedelics and drugs, and he studied ancient civilizations or ancient religions and shamanism, and we discovered that there was a lot of relationship between these ancient religions, or the religions, the religious text and the religious teaching, the ancient religious teaching, and or the how we're now discovered like nature works and science and biology and physics that uh, they had all this information that somehow we became disconnected from
Mm-hmm.
that.
And
In
and
order
I'm
for us to sort of advance as a human being or as a civilization, we need to bring this back together. We
mm-hmm.
need to fuse ancient teaching and knowledge and spirituality with our understanding of nature and
Okay.
the world and science and physics and chemistry and biology,
Mm-hmm.
that they're not separate from each other.
Right, but and we always told that they are separate, completely separate.
Right. They're separate, and we're breaking things up into like hyper specialization,
Mm-hmm.
right? That you have to like break these things down from into smaller and smaller and smaller sections and study them, and we miss the whole bigger picture,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know, it's like that story of, you know, five blind men.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they go and they approach an elephant. One's holding its ear, and the one's holding a tail, and the one's holding a, you know, trunk. And they're all holding an elephant, but they're all talking about different things because they
Mm-hmm.
don't see it from each other's perspective,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that's where we are. Is you, we're so hyper specialized that we miss the connect, how the big picture, like how things are connected
Mm-hmm.
together. So we say, okay, this thing, it does this thing, right? And this is the key, but then you don't know if you turn this key on, something might pop on the other end that
Mm-hmm.
we're totally, you know, ignore.
But to me, that's what knowledge is. To me, is less a question of science, religion, spirituality. To me, it's a question of knowledge and how you expand your mind as a whole. Because I don't think I'm just saying using the human brain just as an example. I don't I don't feel like that there's necessarily a need for everything that we just mentioned. If you just take the brain as a whole, how much you can learn just based on the different parts of the brain. I just think that when people get some sort of information, they can process it to whatever need they have for that for their particular aspect in their life at that moment. And if they have another piece, they can apply it accordingly. It's up to the individual to accept it and to bring the benefit in for that person. And I feel like that's what I do without necessarily agreeing that, hey, this is the point where it started, or this is the middle where it started, or this is the end where it started. I still think you can do that without, using spirituality, politics, anything, science, any of that stuff. I mean, even the part where McKenna was talking about mathematics and science, he seems to make a distinction between math and science. So, based on what you were saying earlier, how would that even work with the
The
science?
math is it's a different way of observing
Mm-hmm.
the 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 whole system, right? So you need to be able to, like we talked, you need to look at this thing from all these different perspectives in
Mm-hmm.
order to get a whole view of,
Right.
because each one, like math is a shadow of the whole.
Mm-hmm.
Science is a shadow. The religious is a shadow. It's like you have this one object casting a shadow in different directions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, have you seen this? There's a good example of it. It's like it's a it's a tube
Mm-hmm.
that's casting a shadow on a wall. On one wall is a square. On the other wall is a circle.
Mm-hmm.
And from a different perspective, you see like a tube, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a person looking at the square saying it's a square. The person looking at the circle saying it's not a square, it's a circle. Well, which
Mm-hmm.
one is it? It's
Right.
circle and a square.
It's both.
It's both. So you
Mm-hmm.
need so all of these things, the religion, science, mathematics, physics, biology, these are just a shadow of the real thing. And that's why I think we need to bring it all together. It all needs to be fused together in order for us to understand better. But the problem is we've all been separated, right? Everything is about being separate. You go in this direction and hyper specialization, and it's sort of, I mean, it's the same idea. Like we're all divided, so we can't understand what the hell is going on, right? It's the same idea. We've been sort of separated in different directions where we all need to look at this holistic. We need to come together. Coming together in order to be able to understand what is happening.
I feel you.
Going on.
I feel you on that aspect of it. If you explain it, if that's the approach, like I can get on board with that. I can for sure.
It's like competition versus cooperation, right? So in order for us to, the left and the right, in order for us to really know to understand what's going on or to resolve anything, we have to cooperate. We have to come together. We have to exchange our perspectives, right? And most of the time we see we all want the same things, right? We're just being divided.
100%, right? Yeah.
And once we come together, we can see, oh, look, it's not us, it's these guys who want us not understand.
But see, that sounds like to me that's a problem with categories as a whole. Just like what is left and what is right, what is religion?
It's a construct.
Yeah, it's always a construct. Yeah.
You know, they're the only construct that they tell you is in gender and gender identity. How they sort of tell you the story, they'll tell you, oh, this is a construct. But
yeah, it is. Gender, race, all those are social constructions. Yeah. 100%.
I mean, I don't think being a male or a female is a construct. You know, I know people say that might be transphobic, right? But certain things are not a construct. The stories we tell ourselves, or we're being told, those are constructs. If that makes sense.
Yeah, but see, if we're going down that rabbit hole, because this is sort of like my realm. It's like, are you looking at it from a biological standpoint, or are you looking at it from a standpoint of when you define, to me, having a penis has nothing to do with being a man. That's a part of being a man, but being a man as a whole can mean a lot of different things.
Call it a male. I don't know.
Male? Yeah.
Is a male not a man?
And there are lots of people and entities that have several characteristics. There are people who have feminine and masculine characteristics. They don't have either at all. Like it's all.
That's okay, but they're still a man. It's a man. They're a male. I mean, this is our thing. We talk about being a masculine or feminine, and this goes all into.
Oh, I don't identify with that shit anyway. I'm a humanist. That's why I say I'm a humanist, and then you don't have to deal with all that other. Humanist is supposed to be all encompassing, right. Instead of saying like, oh, I'm a feminist, and I'm saying to myself, okay, that's definitely problems to it. But I guess getting to your point, we'll never know how to work through any of that dialogue if we don't talk to anybody.
If we don't come together,
to simply condemn someone for saying something is like, I mean, what's the point of doing that? That's not going to help anybody. Yeah. And it's not like you're coming in with ill will or anything. You're just trying to fucking understand. And it's like, right. Okay, enlighten me. Like, tell me what it is that you want to tell me so we can, have a better understanding. But right. But those channels are being constantly closed off, it seems.
I agree. I mean, again, it all comes down to creating problems that cannot be solved. Right? To divide you. They don't want you, like, I don't know. I don't spend much time discussing or arguing it because I know it's just pointless, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'd rather just spend my time doing other things. So and going back to this gematria and numbers, and it's going to be difficult for us to really go into details because it's going to be, you need to have certain orientation,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to, not to necessarily understand, to see, what I might say, because it'll if I was coming to it without the sort of that orientation, it'll sound like nonsense.
Is there some sort of is there like a book or anything you would recommend? Because
it's not a book. It's just it's really just it's not one book or one thing. It's just like gathering all these things together. So I give you one example. They're talking like 911, right?
oh yeah,
No, not the like what happened in 9/11.
No, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about 911.
The number 911.
Yep.
Right. Obviously we've had like there are a lot of events that happen on 9/11. We had the 9/11 terrorist attacks. We had didn't say like Jesus was born on 9/11. There was a thing about resurrect, Jesus being born on 9/11. There is, our emergency number, the telephone we use is 9/11. What is it about 9/11? We use 9/11 as an emergency number, right? Now let's deconstruct that word emergency. What is emergency? Right? And they say, oh, 911, New World Order. Like George W. Bush said the New World Order on 9/11.
100%.
On this other day at 9/11. So let's talk 9/11. You call 911 when there's an emergency, right? What is an emergency? Just say it out. Emergency. Emergence. Emergency. It's when something goes from, there was an order into something, an accident happened, and now there is a change in order. No, there is a change in order. You're driving and your life is going great. You have an accident, and the order of your life changes, and there emerges another order.
Gotcha.
Right? So 9/11 has an emergence, means emergence of a new order. So when they say New World Order on 9/11, it's a emergence of, they're talking about bringing out or starting a new order of things, right? It's not necessarily that the number 9/11 means a disaster or an accident or a terrorist attack.
Right.
I think it simply means a new order of things. Now, why do I even bring it up? Because I found something. It goes into Hebrew, and the gematria in Judaism on the month of Tishrei, which is like the first month of the year, on Tishrei Aleph, we celebrate the creation.
Okay.
Which is the new order of, when you create something, it's a creation. It's a creation of a new thing, of life. It's a new order of something when a life is born. And the gematria for Tishrei Aleph is 9/11.
Oh, wow.
Where I know this makes no sense to anybody who's probably watching this right now. But yeah, let me look at it. I'm gonna write you the definition.
I'm going to tag a book, a series of books, not just about gematria or anything like that, but there's a book that I think people have to read to sort of understand it more. There's one I'm reading now. It's called Number Games, 9/11 to Coronavirus. I have a Scribe subscription, so I get a lot of these books at a very low discount because I've been a member of Scribe for over 10 years, and so um I read a lot on there. But Number Games, 9/11 to Coronavirus, Zachary Hubbard is the author. I follow his channel on YouTube, and he codifies everything, connects all these different things together. Um, and so that's kind of what I was getting at when I was asking Ben the question about, how does this stuff connect to, different realms of sports and religion, spirituality, economy, governments. And this guy has formulated all these different constructions of events just based on gematria, and it's very convincing. Like the stuff he says, it's like you can't dispute when that event happened, when it took place, and then he puts it in, all the codes and stuff. And I'm reading it, I'm entertained by it at the very least. I don't have to believe everything, but I'm coming in with an open mind, just reading the book. Kind of like the stuff you're telling me. I'm just coming in with an open mind. I'm not going to say no, no, no. I'm just listening. And to me, it's just that much more knowledge I have than I didn't have yesterday.
Right. I mean, I think when it comes to these codes, it's either the universe is constructed of all these underlying numbers or relationship of numbers that 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 we're just waking up to, or we're able to see now, that in the past used to be random, or we thought as random, or there is something to it, and there is a they call it the Illuminati, or there's the certain people who have this knowledge or access to this knowledge that has been hidden, that are able to use it in order to control the world in a sense. I'm not saying these are possibilities that could be. I mean, I think a lot of the things in Gematria go into like Kaballah, and I know a lot of people who say, oh, Kabbalah is like demonic and satanic.
Oh God, yeah.
That it has all these things. I think of Kabbalah as magic, as this information, as this knowledge that if you have, you can do all these crazy things that seem like magic. After all, Jesus walked on water. Jesus was a Kabbalist.
What does that mean again? You say like Jesus
Kabbalist is like I'll read you the definition. I don't want to,
because that word is thrown around big time. I mean, but it's not in a good way. You hear these people talk about the cabal and
right, but yeah, again, those are like kind of been like played with, but its true origin,
they're being appropriated. Yeah,
is a follower of ancient Jewish mystical tradition. It's a mystical tradition, and it's a knowledge, it's information, it's a study of something that allows you to be able to control, like magic. It's literally, I think it's magic, right? Now, if you have access to magic, you can, depending on your level of consciousness, right? You can either use it for good, or you could use it for bad. You can use it for bad in order to control, in order to take everything for yourself, or you could use it to benefit humanity. So it all comes down to how you use that knowledge. We have knowledge of physics and chemistry, and we could either use it to build nukes, or we could use it to power every house in the world for free for the rest of time.
Right? Oh wow, I love the way this sounds.
It's a set of knowledge, and in Judaism, you are not allowed to study Kabbalah until you're 40 years old. And until you've gone through studying the Torah and had all
Mm-hmm.
this. You have to study for 4 years to understand all these things, to be able to be in a place to possess this power or
Mm-hmm.
information. Because if in the wrong hands, you can do a lot of damage. So not so they say Kabbalah is hidden. I think it's for good reason, because you can't just
Mm-hmm.
you can't just let anybody access this information.
That sounds a
So
lot.
so part of the conspiracy is, I guess my conspiracy is there, if this is all true and this is magic and this information, is there a small group of people on this planet or in the world at the top of all of these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
That have access to this information, that are using it in order to control, and using it
Mm-hmm.
for the benefit of the self, or their own ego,
Mm-hmm.
or power, rather than using it the other way to benefit the all.
What is Well, that seems to be what Hubbard is implying in this book, is that that the power brokers have this knowledge and they understand how it works.
Or maybe they have pieces of it, not the whole thing.
They don't have the whole thing, but they're part of the puzzle.
Right. And also they're using it. They still, I mean, that still little thing is something, right?
Mm-hmm.
That they're using, and that's just sort of puts us in a place where we are, because some people have a knowledge that they're using it specifically for themselves, where if they were high conscious enough, if they were used that power in a different way to be able to benefit all, that maybe we wouldn't be in a place where we are today.
Oh,
and
I
it's
like
a
that.
crazy
Mm-hmm.
out there thought.
No, man, I love, dude, I
but
love that. That's awesome.
That's my sort of saying, what if, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's true. Based on what if it is,
Well,
it could be a possibility.
well, if that's the case, and I think that's kind of what you're getting at earlier. I'm not one of those type of atheists that's just so defensive, because I know a lot of them out there. They're just so, I don't even want to say radical. They're just so like defensive about their atheism. And I'm saying I'm not like that at all. I'm just like, I'm kind of like let live and let people do their thing. Um, but some people are just so defensive about it. I'm saying to myself, that seems like that's almost psychotic in a way. If you're that defensive about your atheism, it's like, why are you making it a thing like that? To me, you're almost like these religious people that you're condemning, or
Right.
you're
I mean,
trying to.
what does it mean to be an atheist? If you don't, does that, when we say, okay, God doesn't exist, does that mean that everything we are, everything we're experiencing, everything that's the whole universe is just random? Are we just some random blob of just molecules and atoms
That's the thing,
that just happen to
mm-hmm.
to be there, yet it works together like this at a giant fucking scale that it's just all holding together randomly? Like it just, my point is, there is an order. There is an order. There has to be a system or an order to the universe, to the way things are.
Whether it's nature or
in nature, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You can't say nature is random, because it's not. We've already know it's all. We've seen there is like mathematics behind it. There is a system. There is a logic. There is a thing. Now the question is, was there a creator of this system?
Correct. So I like the way you put that. So most atheists that I know, believe that there is like that's obviously order of some kind, but they wouldn't agree with the creationism part of their being a god of that order. Because if that's the case, most atheists are agnostic by default, because most atheists are not going to say, I deny God or I can prove his existence. So I can't prove his existence, but I can't disprove it either. So that falls into the category more of agnosticism. And so I think by default, most atheists are agnostic because we don't know as much as anyone else. We're just as clueless as any theist is when it comes to establishing that this person is real or not real, or that this creation is not real or is real. So I think a lot of that has been used, like you were going to your point earlier, that has been used to pit people against each other, like theists against atheists, the quote unquote theist and atheist, which to me is a very simple um just point of view. It's a different point of view. That's all it is. It doesn't have to be this, oh, you're on this side of the battle and I'm on this side. It's just simply a different point of view. And that's the way I see it anyway.
Okay, let's take a look at a different perspective on God and like creation. Okay. What do you believe humans, or where did humans come from? Are we like a product of genetic manipulation, where we jump, or we just naturally jump from, let's say being from monkeys to being human?
No, that's impossible.
Which one?
Scientifically, that's impossible. Like,
which one? That being genetically manipulated and being created into humans, or going from monkeys and developing into humans?
No, I can see that natural progression, but what I'm saying is just even before that, just it would make sense that we're all, think about us now, the human body. What do we consist of? Germs, right? Humans are literally multi-celled bacteria. Like that's what we are. Like that are composed into, different skin cells and different organs and stuff like that over time. But I believe that we come from the smaller organisms at some point that developed into more sophisticated organisms that eventually became something else.
So does that mean that everything that we were is conscious? Does that make everything just be conscious?
That's a good question. That's
You're a conscious being.
I'm a conscious.
Is the grass conscious?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. Yeah. I agree that nature is connected. Yeah, no doubt. How can we be separated from nature?
Okay, so that if it's conscious and it's working, and now then how is it conscious? Is it thinking and it's just working towards something more? Does that make any sense?
It doesn't have to be the same type of consciousness for it to be consciousness.
Okay, so you're saying we were like, I don't know, fish in the water that just came out and over billions of years turned into a human?
I'm not saying I'm using sort of that rationale, but more so, I mean, we're primates. That's what we are.
So we came from monkeys.
Eventually over time, yeah.
So where are the
we're related. We're related to, we're related.
Right.
No one can deny that.
So if we are, then where is the in between human and monkeys? How come they don't exist?
You say it doesn't?
It doesn't, yeah. Have you seen a half monkey, half human?
No.
Okay, so where is the evolution? You should be able to look back, and in between a monkey and a human, there should be a half monkey, half conscious human, and a monkey.
Right. But monkeys have consciousness, do they not?
They do, but they don't speak like us. They don't.
But they speak.
Not able to.
But they
But they
speak.
don't, right? But there is a clear difference between a human and a monkey. And if we came from monkeys, we should be able to see that chain all the way from us. There should be like 50 different versions of other animals that's in between a human and a monkey.
Right, not just simply those two.
There is no monkey than human.
So are we all monkeys?
No, what if we were monkeys that were genetically manipulated and mutated to become human?
And how would that
there was an intervention.
How would that be possible? You saying that that's where God would come in? Is that what you're saying?
I think there is. Okay, so let me put that into a different way. A woman. Let's talk about a woman who's not able to get pregnant, right? Somebody, a couple who's been trying to get pregnant, and she's just not able to carry a baby or she's just not able to get pregnant. She goes to a doctor who will take an egg and implant it in her, right? The doctor will help this woman through in vitro for her to get pregnant, right? And give birth to a baby, right? Now, this doctor was the reason this baby is born, right? This doctor is the creator of this baby. Well, now, do you consider the doctor the God of this baby?
No.
Why? It was the creator. He created he's the person who caused this human being to be born.
He is, but you had to have tools for that to happen. It wasn't just like he did it. Like there had to be a process behind it.
Okay.
And he had to have tools at his disposal to have that process become a reality. So it wasn't just.
So is it possible that somebody took a monkey and manipulated it and we were humans? You have a guy who
what technology?
A baby.
With what technology?
What do you mean? What if so you think, are we the only beings on this planet, in the universe?
That's another question. I believe that there may be other forms of life 100%. Yeah.
So could we have been in the thousands in the previously another advanced civilization or planetary being or some from another planet came here and they manipulated us to become humans? Like we're like some sort of like a genetically modified organism on Earth. Because if you look at us as humans, we don't really fit on Earth. Like we don't do any. Like we're just pillaging it and destroying it, right? We're just like killing everything that's on the planet. We just don't seem to be fitting,
right?
To be fit for this planet. If humankind was wiped out from the Earth tomorrow, right? Earth would really just flourish.
Yeah, for sure. It would. Right? It would.
It won't go to shit. It won't be destroyed. We'll be gone. But Earth would flourish if we were gone tomorrow. The best thing that could happen to Earth is if we all just vanish tomorrow.
And that will fall in line with science, even right?
Now they're trying to like depopulate.
What's that?
That they're trying to depopulate us? Is that what you're talking about?
No, it's not even about that. I'm just saying, like scientifically, that would make sense that the Earth would grow more. And
yeah, I mean, look at everything that we're doing. We're just
destroying the Earth,
extracting and just destroying without regards to any other life on this planet. Birds and animals and fish and like nothing. We don't give two shits.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is that because maybe we're not, we're like, think of it as we're like a virus on this planet. Like somebody brought a virus to Earth.
Damn.
And we're just that virus. All right?
Yeah.
You can think of it that way.
You know more. See, you know more about that. Or not that you know more, but you've investigated it more than I have. But I'm not gonna sit here and say that I don't. I believe that there's a possibility, 100%. Yeah. I mean, why would that negate that possibility? I'd be silly to do that.
Right. So maybe with the religions that talk about God, to say this being and this and that, I think it like kind of misunderstood. So this is my view of God. Okay, I see God as the operating system, right, and as like somebody else who created an app inside Windows. Like God would be Windows. Right, the operating system, and then you have these things that are inside the operating system that create the apps inside the system, and like we're kind of in a way we're one of those apps.
Gotcha.
Right?
I see what you're saying.
So the idea of that doctor creating a baby, right? The doctor is creating the baby because the system, the operating system, allows that doctor to create, to bring into being that baby. Does that make any sense?
No. It makes a lot of sense.
God, what we're talking about God in terms of there is like essentially, I guess for us would be, there is two gods. There is the God of the universe, the operating system, the thing that just penetrates everything in the universe, right? And the God that created us.
I got you.
Or the person, or the thing, or the being, or the whatever we want to call it, right? That created us.
Well, I mean, to me, that sounds, to go to your point, that sounds scientifically consistent too. There's no conflict with science. Think about the way the system is set up, the solar system. I mean, you have different layers. You have the atmosphere, the troposphere, you have the thermosphere. You have everything has its place within that dome, I guess you can say, if that's what it's called, a dome. So you're saying that there's a dome for us, and then there's a dome for the universe as a whole.
Right. We're just, I think everything is in scale, right? And it just depends on how you view it. So our bodies are made up of billions of atoms and cells, right? What if we're just one cell or one atom in the body of the universe? Because there is trillions, billions and billions of stars and galaxies and you know, stars and galaxies in the universe and planets. Right?
Oh yeah,
and we're just like one tiny
not even a speck
on a universal scale. Right? So,
and we create so much damage, which is so scary. I mean, the power that these people have, that we have, that contributes to this harmful environment for all of us. I mean, like you said, I mean, we could all be gone tomorrow, and it's funny that you put it that way. I never thought about it that way. If we were all gone tomorrow, how everything would just grow and just do its own thing. Everything would do its own thing.
Because it's connected.
Because it's already
that it's running on itself.
It's running on itself. It was here before us.
And it runs on a feedback loop. Like what we feed into it, it comes right back, because that's how the system. And the only way that the universe can run, and the way it runs, it has to be on a feedback loop. it can be random. It's the
It can
information
be.
you put into it, it's going to come back, and it's constantly learning from itself. So knowing that you could be like, not you, but we are a cancer, sort of like a virus or a cancer on Earth, then we can sort of orient our mind into our purpose and what we can do to sort of what's our responsibility on Earth. Do we want to be sort of like, we want to be the cancer that's healing itself, right?
100%.
We're the cancer cell that needs to be fixed to become a normal sort of cell. I don't know. I don't know how to, like, this is the best way I can sort of like talk about it, is that
no, I think it's going to relate
once you realize that, hey, you're like, we're sort of the virus. If you look at it from that perspective, then maybe we can start to take responsibility for our actions and the things that we do that while we're on Earth, whether it's caring for others, how we contribute, how we consume, how we utilize our resources, how we do everything. And if we are to have our species, because we are sort of a species, to survive, we need to be in harmony with nature. And I think we have the capabilities, and it seems like we're going in that direction, and that the system that we have right now, that we've all been a part of, right? It's only helping to perpetuate the cancer and the virus, not to heal. Because like your body is full of viruses and bugs and germs. And your body works in harmony with the germ. We want to be the germ that works in harmony with nature and with the earth, and not the one that's going to cause the cancer.
And like I said, people can draw between the lines whatever they want, but a lot of this stuff you're saying, no, it should make sense to a lot of people. Like it definitely makes sense to me. Like 100%, it does. And the way you describe that system, breaking it down, like your version of God versus, I mean, the God that they teach you, Sunday and stuff, it's not even the same thing, it seems, based on what you're saying. But even within that, I just think that people are becoming more spiritual over time. I think they are. Just I think people are trying to search for more and more things, because even just like with anything else, I think it's impossible to do hardcore anything. You can't, to me, there's no such thing as a hardcore atheist, a hardcore. I mean, it's just like, how can you discredit everything? That doesn't make any sense at all, to discredit everything. I mean, that, to me, that's like, that doesn't, like, you become completely disconnected from this order we're talking about, I guess, right now.
Right. I think we're like, for maybe some of the people watching or will be watching, we're going off the deep end with.
Do you think so?
We're talking about. I don't know, and it's kind of not.
It's philosophical,
easy.
Man.
I know, but it's not easy to. Like I said, you need to have a certain orientation, and there is a lot of stuff out there that I don't know. To me, everything is connected. Okay, everything. And we say what goes around comes around, right? And even with a lot of these things that we've been taught and we said, I think if you take it into its deeper level, and you look at these like ancient stories and like all this, it makes a lot of sense, but you have to sort of like peel that layer. So this idea of what goes around comes around, right? it's no different than us saying the universe works on a feedback loop.
Right.
What you feed into it, right? It's gonna feed back into itself.
Uh-huh.
Right? And you can take this, for example, it's a good time to get into, like, we're talking about AI, right? AI what is AI? We're talking artificial intelligence. It's artificial. How does AI learn? It learns from us. It observes us, and it learns from us, and it keeps feeding back to us what it learns, right? We were training the AI. We're like very early in those stages of AI, where the AI is learning. So if we go into the age of AI in a way, with the mentality, with the way the world is right now, where it's divided, it's constantly, butting head with each other. There is wars and hate and fighting and sadness, and just it's a reflection of our consciousness, right? We're literally downloading our consciousness into the AI. We're feeding it all this information.
So we're dumbing ourselves down, and
we're not dumbing ourselves. It's just like a baby. Like, it's like you're training a baby in a way, right? Like, what is a baby's consciousness when it's born into a war-torn, like a kid who's born in Ethiopia or in Sudan in the middle of a war, right? When it's born into that, when it's like 1, 2, 3 years old, all its experience is just war and savagery and like, it's given a gun at 11 years old to go kill people. All these stories, these like child soldiers, right? What is that kid gonna be like when it's older? What its view of the world when he's older, right? You can apply the same thing to AI.
Okay.
AI is learning from us. The only difference, and unfortunately for us, AI is able to process information like 1 billion times faster than we do. And from huge, enormous pool of like data, and it has the ability to correlate data or to find patterns in this data. So if we're just feeding the AI with our conscious, like with the things that we're doing, whether it's like posting on social media, what we consume, what we talk about, our whole society in general is feeding information. You have your phone that's constantly with you, right? I wonder how many like weird ads we're gonna get after this conversation and next week from all these things we talk about. Like, yes, I'll give you one example. I was on Sunday, I was telling my daughter to come help me wash dishes, right? Because my wife was out with my other daughter, and I was telling my daughter, let's wash some dishes. Yesterday, I kept getting ads for dishwashing soap. And a dishwasher, like, what are the odds that I have my phone in my pocket and I'm talking to my daughter about, hey, come help me wash dishes, right? And the day later, I get 3 different ads for 3 different dish soap.
Oh yeah.
And I never get those ads.
Of course yeah.
Right.
And so do you think that a consciousness can be formed from all the information that we give to the artificial intelligence?
I think we're feeding not a human consciousness, but if you want AI to be able to help us, right? We have to teach it with a high consciousness. Like, we have to feed it things that we want it to loop back to us, to feed back to us.
And that's happening now. I mean, obviously, when you do, if you give something enough feedback, it's going to know your buying habits. It's going to know your emotions.
Right.
All this
so
stuff.
That's what I said. We're using AI. We have a choice how we're going to use AI. We could either use it to help us grow, which we're going to be merging our consciousness with AI. I don't think that AI will ever be conscious on its own.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a set of rules that we designed that it's like learning.
Yeah, like
right,
formulaic.
and it can correlate like large amount of data.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and it helps spit back information back to us whenever we need it. Like, Alexa, what's the blah 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 blah?
Siri,
right?
Anybody, yeah.
And they're collecting this information. So if to understand more of what I'm talking about, I want you to, anybody who's listening, go look up this guy. His name is Ben Gortzel.
Not Ben Sedaghatfar.
Ben Gortzel, Goertzel.
Okay.
And this guy is like the father of artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
He's been working on artificial intelligence since the 80s, since the late 70s.
Mm.
And he's got this. There's a bunch of interviews with him on YouTube.
Yeah, I see him on here. Lex Friedman,
on Lex.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, listen to him on Lex Friedman, on Rogan, on London Real.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a bunch, and he talks about our relationship with AI. So AI, AI is going to be out no matter what. I mean, there's no stopping it.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to understand our role in the way we interact or interface or work with this AI.
Mm-hmm.
And it can go either two ways. It can either go where we just become totally trapped by AI because of our behavior and the way we treat each other, because the way we treat each other, and that's how the AI learns, the AI is going to treat us the same way. Feedback, right? Mm. So if you could say at one point, I'm not saying this necessarily could be true, if we're just constantly fighting and we're trying to eliminate each other, that the AI becomes highly, not conscious, but learns enough to perceive us as a threat and decides to just eliminate us.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
So just take cancel culture to the AI level.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
Yeah.
What if AI just decides to just cancel us?
Mm-hmm. I know.
You know?
It's crazy. It's really not a laughing matter. I mean, if you look at it from that perspective, there's power in knowledge and there's power in information.
Right.
And that information has been taken away from us because it is disconnecting us. You know, that's what we were saying earlier, being able to free flow information. No one should be against that because you're cutting off any communication you have with someone else.
But also information that helps to benefit society. We have to move beyond just competition and taking everything for ourselves and work towards a society or a place where we're working together in cooperation and not competition. And we'll be able to, help create a better world for our children. Like it's sort of past us. So we're already in this halfway through our lives, but our children, and that's something that I don't think we think enough about, is that, like, I want to care. We need to care more about our children and our children's children, and not just what we want now for ourselves. If we want to survive as a species, that we and we're at a point where we are coming to a point in time, whether with our advanced knowledge or whatever, it's this time where us as a human species have a choice to make.
Mm-hmm.
We're coming at a fork in the road.
Mm-hmm.
And which direction we go is going to determine whether our civilization and species is going to just go the wrong way and die, or go into a new era to be able to expand, to live in harmony, and probably live beyond Earth.
Mm-hmm.
So
I tell you what, Benny. I tell you what,
all
Benny.
of everything we talked about, I think the culmination of all of it is that as we have all these things that are happening around us. It's in a way it's a good thing. It's sort of a wake up call
Mm-hmm.
to be able to realize that things are changing, and it's probably happened before. I don't think it's the only time this has happened, and we're just experiencing it in a different time and place. And it's, in a way, people say, "Oh, it's things are going to be hard." Yeah, but for me, it's like, what an amazing time to be alive, to be able to experience all this, because I don't think I wanted to be living in the 1700s,
Mm-hmm.
where things were like sort of just slow and not much is happening, and you're just living this. I'm not saying bad life, just you were like,
Static.
what a time! What other time in history, right? Has there been so many changes in such short amount of time? Like,
Mm-hmm.
when we were born, there was no cell phones, no computer, no internet, none of that, right? We've
Mm-hmm.
experienced that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Minus like let's say time before would be like the invention of like the wheel or something, right? Because since we were born, there's so many there is so much changes we've experienced in our lifetime, not even in our parents' lifetime, in our lifetime.
We're a very
I
distinct generation. We're very distinct.
That we have, that I don't think there's been not many other times in history of time or humankind that this is happening.
I totally agree.
Right. So I take sort of like saying, like, what an amazing time to be alive, to be able to have been born and lived in a time to experience, to see and experience all these changes of the old and the new, and like the formation of something new. I mean, it's hard to explain, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say.
I do. I totally do.
And so for anybody who's listening, who's still with us, or going to be listening to this, and
they will. I'm gonna break it into 3 parts, so they're gonna be listening.
Okay, but that I think we should all take this as a positive and a positive thing. Mm-hmm. That it's a great time to be alive and to be able to contribute and to leave your own mark in this new time that we are going into, because not many other people in history would have been able to be in a place and a time where we are to be able to do that.
Man, when you got to talking about that part about how this is a distinct time, you were thinking like I was, and then you started talking about the technology that we didn't have that they do have now. I was thinking the exact same thing you were. I can only think about one thing, and that's just the Gen X moment is a really distinct thing. It's just we're both 40 years old, I think, I'm 40
Yeah, I'll
anyway.
be 40 in 2 weeks or in a
So,
week.
so we're in a very narrow, in a way, we're in a very narrow group of people, but such an influential angle as well, because a lot of the people, even 10 years younger than us, they don't have any sort of ideas like this. Like I don't feel like they contemplate the same way that we do as far as these concerns. I'm not saying that they don't contemplate, but it's just to the degree that we do, due to the lack of technology that we had, and also to the geopolitical atmosphere and everything else that we experienced growing up. Is just, it's hard to teach that. But there's a lot going on now, that I think even the post millennials will be able to, if they want to, they can take advantage of, and have that knowledge base to pass down to the future generations. I definitely think that they have the opportunity.
We have a special sort of place in history, so I think we need to take it and 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 we have a big responsibility that I think we all need to be aware of, and how we move forward with it.
I tell you what, Ben, I don't know how much time you have left. I was going to cut it relatively short because, like, I got to go places. I know you got stuff to do. We didn't even talk about Julian Assange, man. I wanted to at least get him thrown in here a little bit. Do you have like 10 more minutes and then we can kind of close it out?
Yeah. I mean, I don't. What do you? I mean, what do you want? What about Julian Assange?
I guess I want to bring up, like, how does he fit into this whole thing, into this information age? For a lot of my listeners and audience that frankly don't even know who he is, because I've talked to people, had private conversations, and people look at me with 10 heads when I bring up Julian Assange, and they're like, who is Julian Assange? Like, they don't even know who he is.
Right.
And so where does he fit into this aspiration to find information and to give it out to the people, disseminate it to people for the greater good? That obviously he's going through a lot right now.
Well, I mean, the fact that they're trying to put him away for eternity because he published information that sort of exposed what, not only our government but other governments were doing, should say a lot about where we are as societies, and we're not tearing down every wall, trying to one, get him free, but also hold people accountable for all these things that we've done. So it may come to that. I don't know. I mean, let's put it. Let me put it in another. I think a lot of information and technology that we have, right? It all comes down to how we use it, and how we. I mean, I don't know exactly. Let's go back. What is your opinion on Julian Assange? And I'll build on that.
Okay. So I don't, my problem is that I don't know why. I think it goes into the misinformation. The true misinformation is not having all the information. That's what I believe. And the fact that a lot of people don't even know who he is shows how powerful the official information is. And so
how controlled the flow of information.
The flow of information, anything that goes outside of New York Times, CNN, Wall Street Journal, anything that's established, anything that goes outside of that is automatically under a microscope 10 times. And it is never given the benefit of the doubt, because it's always viewed as illegitimate. And it's like, I don't know. And it shows how education has really failed us, because we're not questioning everything. We're
We're not questioning at all.
We're not questioning at all. We're simply following the order that's already been put in place, you know, in print. And so that's it almost feels like an uphill battle for Julian, in my opinion. Because the fact that he doesn't have the international support like he should have, it just shows how we've been subdued enough to where even the people who were on Team Assange at one point, they've almost lost interest in it because they're onto another, you know, storyline. It's just and people really feel like they're becoming more educated by reading these papers. They think that these are the papers. And I'm telling people, if you subscribe to these things, I'm not telling you, I'm not telling you to get rid of your subscription to Wall Street Journal or any of these public USA Today, anything. I'm simply saying you're simply reading another channel of information that may not be the complete picture to what Benny and I have been talking about the whole time. It's just simply another avenue, but don't discredit any other avenues. And I've always been a proponent of reading everything. And so, and even the people in the Q rabbit holes, even those people are searching for answers. Like I think some of them, I think the vast majority of the Q people are genuine, but I think that there are some people who are just, they always want to find a way to entertain other people and not necessarily keep the flow going. They're actually stopping the flow. That's almost their way of stopping the flow of information. So you do have those people who are trying to limit what we can know that's out there. But just like I have a problem with the scopes, these types of organizations, the PolitiFact, all these fuckers. I mean, are you kidding me? Like it's just the one publication that has 100% track record, I think is what they say. That's WikiLeaks' biggest claim to fame, is that they haven't been disproved. They won every court case. Yeah. So why would the legitimate media try to clamp her down and destroy the only legitimate media that we've had?
Because the media is controlled by the deep state.
Okay. So you're saying so anything that we follow, basically, is there anything that we follow that isn't deep state control? Is the question. Because we know corporate news is all deep state.
This conversation that we're having, I think these conversations that people have, I mean, right now this is like streaming live and it's small, but the more conversations you have in person and you exchange your views, because I feel like a lot of people think the same way. We're just afraid to talk about it. We all feel it. We all feel it. We know it, but we're afraid to verbalize it because you don't know if the other person is you know, you don't know where they stand, right?
Exactly.
That person might be feeling the same way as you are, but they think you're the other one. So you guys are just having this like conversation, right? And you're both going back and forth, when in reality, you both feel the same way, but talking to each other about the exact opposite, right? So what I've learned, you just say what it is. And for the most part, when I have, a lot of people was like, oh, wow, I didn't know there was another person who thought this way, right? But because when they come, everybody's always like testing you when they're like talking, right?
Yeah, man, it's a fucking interrogation
to see where you are. So I just come right out of the gate, and 95% of the time, I find that I'm the same place where everybody's like, yeah, man, it's like fucking crazy. I don't know. I haven't seen that many people that feel this way. I'm afraid to talk about it and this and that. And it's just that fear that we're not that we're afraid to say what's on our mind or how we feel, because we don't want to be you know, outside. We don't want to be label.
And is that
Right?
and is has that been the effectiveness of the deep state media to where we've been politicized so bad to the point where
Their purpose is just create a false reality
mm-hmm.
and fear that people buy into,
Mm-hmm.
that that you think there is this thing like racism, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
like every black person all of a sudden is fearful for their life, for
Mm-hmm.
example. That's how America just turned racist overnight.
Right.
Like that it's not safe for people to walk down the street, or that somehow the American flag is triggering because
mm-hmm.
somebody has an American flag on their house.
Mm-hmm.
Is to create that fear, and it's the fear, it sort of paralyzes people
Mm-hmm.
to not talk about their true feelings, and everybody starts sort of, it's very it's like everyone's wearing a mask when they leave their
Everyone
house.
is wearing a mask, 100%.
Right? And you're just talking through this mask, right? And you're just having this alternate reality conversation that you're sort of have to live in, because this is what's been constructed to you by the media.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you're just gonna take it off when you get home, and you're just like gonna do your thing when you're at home. And the people that you're like close to.
Mm-hmm.
In your job, you don't really talk about it. You don't talk about it outside with random people. You're very cautious about what you talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But the only way to break through is to just talk about it.
I totally agree. I 100% agree on that. Yeah, I like that. Ben, I tell you what, it's 4:00 my time.
How many hours do we go?
Over 3, man. Almost 3.5.
Over 3? Oh, we still got another couple to go, but not right now. Not right now.
I know, not right now, not this time. But Ben, man, this is the first time doing an interview. And I got to tell you, it seems like you've been a seasoned veteran, man, given these types of interviews.
I don't know anything. I don't claim to know. But I just talk about what I've learned. And I think there's a couple of realizations. One, you realize that you're a lot of reality is not what's inside your TV. It's not the news that you listen to. The reality is like your everyday experience with the people that you're around, and also knowing our, like, that idea, like, be like, what, I don't know, I guess we're all looking for a purpose. And for me, I've learned that it's hard. I mean, I don't know how to explain it. It's not about all these like political stuff. Life is about, it's about relationships, and what there's this thing in Judaism that says, do unto others as you want done to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it goes back to, you treat people how you want to be treated. And life is much simpler than that. And even the people that you disagree with right now, especially politically, that are on like the left or right, that you have to treat them with respect, with love, and with kindness. And in return, you can start to break down those walls and come to a common ground where, you get, like me and for example, my brother-in-law, he's like way out on the other end.
Really?
Yeah, he's way out on the other end.
But as far as like you can't talk to him about anything?
No. It's just ideas that he has. Like ideologically, he's is way on the other side. But we're having the best time. We're like at this point, it's like sort of we just like rag on each other about all these political views.
Right.
But we have a lot in common. We're basically the same thing on like opposite fucking poles.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And at the beginning, like when this whole thing started, it became a little weird.
I got you.
But there were so many other things that we had
in
common. One,
common.
first it was like the respect, and then two, we're just all the time we're hanging out, we're having fun, and we started making jokes, and we both realized that this is like he's not who his, what the ideas that the sort of he's not like he's
build
more
up.
than the build up or what he thinks of what is happening. He's not that. It's just he still has all these things and he's a good person. He wants the good things, he believes like some of this stuff because he believes this is the right thing. But I think in order, and at this point, those things have just become sort of like a background noise between us that is like sort of irrelevant.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So
that's amazing, man. That's amazing to be able to have a healthy existence and dialogue and coexistence with people. Like I'm definitely a big promoter for that. Just like keep it flowing. Don't shun people.
Treat others the way you want to be treated, and I think that one thing is gonna help resolve a lot of these tensions that we have with each other.
Ben, how can people reach out to you? Do you have like any active social media in case a viewer want to like send a question to you or DM?
Facebook.
Okay.
Ben Sedaghatfar, they just look it up.
Yeah, okay. You get your shit on the screen, man. Like this motherfucker got Ben and then just like half of his last name.
No,
like,
it's on there.
No, you ain't got all your last name on there.
Yeah, I do.
Do you? You've changed it over the years. At one point, it's like Ben Sad or something on
Ben
there.
Sedaghatfar.
Yeah. Ben Sedaghatfar. Okay, you got it on there. I felt like at points you've changed it up a little bit. I mean, I had to because my students were damn near harassing me, so I had to go from. Oh yeah, man, I couldn't put my real name on there. Hell no, I had to do. That's why I did Kiko and just stuck. And it's hard to. I can't even find myself that easily on Facebook. Doing Kiko, I'm like, that's the way I want it. And, I'm on the job market too. So, in case some fucker wants to know my real views, well, I got a podcast now, so they're going to know my views anyway. But, now I don't have anywhere to hide. But, Ben, I had a pleasure talking to you. I've had a pleasure talking to you over the years, man, just about different stuff. And I know we got a lot of classmates and, people we went to school with that are going to listen to this. And so a lot of people
I hope they do. I hope they listen to it and kind of brings us, sort of reconnect us in a way.
That's going to be our class reunion because I didn't go to that shit.
I haven't been to any of ours. I've been in California. Man. I would have loved to go, but.
Why didn't you hook up with Chris and Naya, man? You guys are both in the same town.
He's about like 45 minutes to an hour away, but yeah, I would love to.
Yeah, he mentioned you not too long ago or whatever. Like he obviously, I know we used to all kind of hang out a little bit and
I need to reach out to him actually.
Yeah,
he's an
man.
Architect, and I need to talk to an architect actually.
Okay, hey, we might be getting a business deal done live on Kiko's Freaking Thinkers Forum. But Ben, it was a pleasure having you.
Thank you for having me.
No doubt, man. Shout out to you and shout out to your family. And we're going to keep it moving. On to the next episode. We have Margaret Kimberly next week. And I know a lot of people follow Margaret Kimberly, Black Agenda Report. She's got a pretty big following. So get your questions into KikoFreeThinker@gmail.com. But we'll see you later, people. Have a good one. We'll stay on, Ben, if you want to.
No, I gotta go. I gotta run.
Okay, man.
Everybody. All right. We'll talk soon.
Hey, Kate. Okay, buddy. All right.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.